What's up, everyone? We are back for the first regular episode of GameFace for 2019. It is episode 153 right here on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I know you guys may think it's really slow right now at the games. It is a little slow.
Yeah.
But
maybe you're just looking straight at releases.
Yeah. But we have plenty of games to talk about on today's episode. Some crazy topics to discuss as well. A lot of weird stuff has been going on in the industry.
2019 is not even 2 weeks old, and it needs to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things we want to talk about before we get on with the show. First of all, we are having a summit on Thursday, the second Sifted Summit. And basically we're going to invite everybody in who wants to give any kind of input on the future of Sifted. We are looking at completely revamping our Patreon, creating new goals and things like that. And we want your input on all that stuff. So keep an eye on Sifted's official Twitter account at Sifted Games. And we'll kind of set up a time for you guys to join us here on Twitch to go through it all. Low frills, not entertainment. It's all about us getting together and putting our heads together and try to figure out the best way forward for Sifted. So keep an eye on our Twitter account, and we'll give you guys a time where we can all get together and discuss what we're going to do. Folks watching the show on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Second of all, it would be great if you guys could kick us some money on our Patreon. If you can't, a good way to make up for that is to help contribute to us through Twitch Prime. There are instructions on how to do that down in the description. It literally takes like 2 minutes if it's the first time. If you've already set up your account, it is one click and it takes like 2 seconds. So we'd appreciate it if you guys could do that, but really we would hope you guys would consider contributing to our Patreon, because Twitch Prime money is great, but it's very inconsistent. It's hard to count on. Our Patreon is a little bit more reliable in that regard. Also, one other thing before we get going, Vincent was very generous to share in chat that a story broke as we were getting ready for the show. Apparently, the Star Wars game that Amy Hennig was working on before she left, and then was picked up by EA Vancouver, right, has been canceled altogether.
Because for some reason making a Star Wars game is really hard.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on over there?
They're just dropping the ball.
Open world game. Just take Assassin's Creed Odyssey, give them a lightsaber, and
you're done.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what? Give me 15 robes to wear. Let me change the color. Run around, hack people up with a lightsaber, climb over stuff.
Fun.
Steal hover cars. Like, what's the story? Well, you're a Jedi. You're done. Like I said, just put a game out. Come on.
Pretty ridiculous.
What the hell?
Yeah, and you guys probably know that Amy left, and they tried to salvage the project, and apparently they were unable to do so.
Man, LucasArts used to put out like 5 things a year, and half of them were terrible, but they did it.
Yeah. They didn't care that much about quality back then.
No, and every once in a while you get a great one.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you get the Clone Wars.
Right.
And, it's just it's fine.
Like anything with life, you take the good with the bad.
They can't all be TIE Fighter.
Exactly.
We know that.
Yeah. So.
But at this point, they all have to be Battlefront, it seems like.
Yeah, EA has gone from dropping the ball to...
they don't even know where the ball is.
Yeah, just it's in some other court now.
It's like, where'd we put the ball?
Yeah, it's really, really bad. I will say this, though. It does give me even more hope that Respawn's game will come out this year.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to do something right.
You have to have some faith in something for them to drop a project.
Vince Zampella is not going to screw that up.
He's not going to screw it up. It's not going to take him 3 or 4 years to make it either.
I guarantee you Vince has a Star Wars game in his head.
Yeah.
That he's
had in his head since he was 10.
He's like, man, we made... that has to be pretty simple compared to creating Titanfall from basically scratch.
Right. I know. I mean, that's a good point. They're having to create hardly anything from scratch. The universe is there. The characters are there.
The sounds are done.
The sounds are there. The models are there.
Yeah. It's all in Frostbite already.
I never would have imagined when we heard that EA got the Star Wars license that it would end up like this.
It's amazing.
It's incredible what has happened. So there you go. Another Star Wars game off the block. I don't know. And now we're going to get, Battlefront 3
Maybe
next
Fallen
year?
Jedi is just about, this deal. It's like a thinly veiled metaphor for the EA Star Wars licensing deal.
We're going to pay real attention to the plot in that game and see if we can pluck it out.
I would absolutely not put that past Vince.
I would not either.
To just sort of I'm just gonna make this game that's gonna save their calendar year, and it's gonna be a thinly veiled criticism of them.
Yeah.
That would be very in character.
Yep. Okay, so before we get on with the show, I do want to bring up one other thing. Sifted user Wally who has been on the site literally since the beta, gave us a huge donation over the holidays. And, we run the Sifted Patreon stuff throughout the show, but I just want to give him a specific call out because he donated a ton of money to Sifted as kind of a Christmas gift to us. So I just want to say thank you very much, Wally. We appreciate it very much. So,
and actually, one more thing. We are starting the storm of the year here in LA.
Meaning it's going to rain for more than 10 minutes.
With the next 3 days, LA is supposed to get more rain than it got all last year.
Yeah.
So because LA's infrastructure is garbage, there is a real possibility the internet or the power could go out while we're doing this. So if that happens,
wait for the archive.
Yeah, sorry, we live in what is basically a giant 13 million person tent.
Yeah.
when it comes to the infrastructure.
Also, when it rains here, it's like the world's ending. So
yeah,
it'll probably take me about 3 hours to drive home after this.
Yeah, it's just potholes and Priuses skidding across the road.
People freak out over the rain here. It's so sad. But anyway, with that, let's get on with the first real episode of GameFace for 2019. And we're going to talk first about a game that was released back in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that long. We're going to talk about New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
The increasingly inaccurately named New Super Mario Bros. Franchise.
Right. When New Super Mario Bros. U came out, I think I recall myself saying, you could not come up with a dumber name. And then they did by adding the word deluxe onto the end of it.
There's a tradition there, DX used to be what they tack on like the Game Boy updates of the Mario Brothers. I remember the Game Boy Color had Super Mario Brothers DX.
Right. Yeah, they've been using that moniker for a while. They should probably go back to the DX.
I'd also like to thank, I think, Chris Kohler on Twitter who called out the whole Brothers Bros thing, which is the dumbest thing. I mean, there's a whole thing where like the younger YouTube kids call the game Super Mario Bros. And for a while I thought, that must be like their nickname for this. But no, they think that's actually the name of the game. I'm like, no, it's Super Mario Brothers. It's a stylization of the title, because if you shorten Brothers to Bros like that, you can make the title bigger on the arcade game marquee. Right. That was the reason they did that. Yeah. And they've just kept that. But it's not Super Mario Bros. It's not Smash Bros. It's Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, we say that as a joke.
If you insist on saying Bros, you also have to call it Der Mario and Donkey Kong Jr. That's the rule. Because that makes it just as much sense.
I am down with that. I'm totally in line with that. So we're going to talk about...
But I forgot this game came out, so I didn't play it.
Yeah, it came out this past Friday. It seems like all Nintendo games come out on Fridays now.
Friday. Remember they used to come out on Sundays sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But this one came out this past Friday. I've been playing it over the weekend. I've been playing it for a few days now. First off, I think people are probably wondering, okay, what are the changes or the updates for Deluxe versus the 6-year-old Wii U game?
Well, Bowsette, we know that.
Yes, so you're going to see it right now.
Peachette.
There are 2 new characters that you can play as in the game. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And it also
they've rolled in Super Luigi.
Yeah, includes Super Luigi
Super U. Luigi U, which qualifies as the 3rd worst title for a video game ever. That is rolled into this game as one package. And for those of you who don't remember, it's 84 extra levels, but it's basically like the Game Plus mode. It's a little more difficult.
Yeah, it's almost like a Lost Levels thing. It's like expert mode.
Because Luigi is faster. He slides more. He's not as responsive. Mm-hmm. So it's basically an extra mode to play afterwards for the people who really want to get good at the game or feel like they are good at the game. So that has been rolled into the package here. Now, the cost of the game is $60. It is a full-priced game, which is a little hard for me to swallow if you're going to repackage. And this really is a repackage. We've had the debates about Smash Brothers. This undoubtedly is just a port of the game to Switch.
Which I think is, that's fine. Like anything that was exclusive to the Wii U, I think should come to Switch just because...
Nobody played it.
Otherwise, they'll get lost, frankly. Yeah. I think that's going to happen to stuff like that Fatal Frame game.
Yeah.
Probably Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yep.
I think if you leave it on the Wii U, it's going to get lost.
I always forget the name of that Platinum game that was there at launch.
Wonderful 101?
Yeah.
That's another great one. I'm surprised that hasn't already come frankly.
Yeah, that probably should have been one of the first ones, but there's probably licensing or some other
Some of it might just be like,
issue.
I mean, there's kind of a thing about, like, you know, the touchscreen on the gamepad on the Wii U, like, complicates kind of the transition a little bit, but it's like, if you can get The World Ends With You on there, and it's not like that translated perfectly because of the, you know, having to translate it from like the touchscreen on the DS, but it works. You know, it's better than not having it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the only other change is they remodeled a couple character heads for the game, and there's some light texturing work, and they've put aliasing on the shadows, and that's it.
Okay.
Or no, they've
anti-aliasing.
They put anti-aliasing on the shadows. Now the shadows aren't as aliased.
Okay.
But otherwise, it is
so
it's
mild
also
graphical
1080p
upgrade.
instead of 720p.
All right.
So
I mean, I do like how the new Super Mario Brothers look is a very, very clean. I think it looks really good in high resolution. So that's cool.
Yeah. Here's another thing. I had not played much of the original. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned it many times.
I didn't play
I'm not the world's biggest 2D Mario fan anymore.
No, me neither. I thought 3D World was much better than this.
Yep, agreed. I played, I think, the first 2 worlds when it came out the first time. So I experienced a lot of the game this time that I did not the first time. And I will say that that's a shame because the further I got into the game, the better it got and the more I enjoyed it. I felt like the first couple levels were just stereotypical 2D Mario stuff, and the more I played, the more worlds that I got to, the more interesting the game became, the better the level design became, the more rewarding the secrets became. And you can see here, the game is just loaded with secret areas to discover and places to find. A big part of the game is collect everything. It's a Mario game. So as usual, if you collect 100 gold coins, you get an extra man, but there are also 3 star coins that you need to find in each level. And obviously, there's risk and reward attached to each one of those. And so it makes it a little more challenging to collect them. They're harder to find sometimes, or you have to activate something for them to appear, or you'll be in one part of the level and you'll see the coin, and then you have to backtrack and try to figure out how do I actually get to it.
It's funny how I still kind of think of the red coin thing as a new feature, but it's 23 years old.
Yeah. Now it is at this point. Yes, you're right, though. I look at it that way, too. When I started playing this, I was like, oh, that's right. They have the red coins in this. Yeah. They've had it in, like, the 5 prior Mario games.
Yeah, they've had it since Mario 64.
Yeah, it's been a thing since then. So it's still 2D Mario. And there aren't really any tricks or gimmicks. And I think a lot of people will appreciate that. There's no poltergust. There's no water cannon. There's no real gimmicks to this game at all. It's just straight up 2D Mario platforming action.
There's no Cappy.
No, and it's challenging. I'll say that too. I wonder how far kids made it through this game when it came out for Wii U, and how far they're going to make it once they play the Switch version. As a platforming veteran, I definitely found plenty of challenge, even in the first couple worlds.
Well, this is the one where, like, if you fail too much, you can get like the invincible, like.
Yep.
Luigi or something like that?
So it's not really that. They show you how to... So if you die several times in a row, you get an option. You can get an option to show you how to go through the level, and they'll actually play a video of Luigi making it through the level, at least the way Nintendo thinks you should go through the level. And then if you want, after you watch that, or you can choose not to watch it if you want as well, but after that's done, you can choose to either replay the level, or you can choose to just skip it altogether and go to something else and kick back out to the map screen. So yeah, all that stuff is still in place, all the noob friendly, but it doesn't actually help you get through the level. Like, you still have to have the dexterity and the timing and the skill to get through it. They just show you kind of the ideal path. It can be helpful to show you how to get some of the coins, the star coins, and there's 3 on each level. And you can see in what you're seeing right now, I have 2 out of the 3 right now on this level, if you look up at the top left there. Collecting it all, I mean, it's really just for completionists. It's not like you get crazy bonuses or anything. There are power-ups that you find throughout the game that are added to your collection, and when you're back out on the map screen, if you're having trouble with the level, you can activate one of those power-ups that'll help you get through the level. And then, of course, there's 4-player co-op, which was probably the biggest feature in this game, and it is still cool and really fun.
Just in case you have some friendships you'd like to end.
Yeah, exactly. But here's one thing I would say after playing a good bit of this. I've not finished it, but I'm a little over halfway there, I'm guessing, based upon the number of stages that I've completed so far, is I should have given it more of a chance back when it came out for Wii U, because I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I was going to. And the other thing I would say is if you're burned out on 2D Mario games, this isn't going to change it.
Yeah.
It's not so good that it's going to change your opinion of it and make you want to maybe go back and play some of the other 2D Mario games that you missed. And the third thing I would say is that after having Mario Maker, 2D Mario games, to me, the value of them it's just not the same anymore. Because, I don't know, some of the levels that I played in Mario Maker were some of the most creative Mario levels I've ever played in my life. And now that I'm going back through, this is the latest 2D Mario, right? This is the last one that they made for consoles.
I think so, yeah.
So going back now and playing the latest 2D Mario with conceivably the best ideas the team could come up with 6 years ago, it's not as impressive as it would have been if I had not played a ton of user-created stages. But it is 2D Mario. The controls are on point and absolutely sublime. I chose to play with Mario. You can choose whatever character you want, and they all kind of have little subtle differences. Like Peach, for instance, is like the noob-friendly character because she can float a lot farther, which gives you that margin of error in anything you do throughout the game. Like you're seeing right now with like the Tanuki suit. Like having that ability to hover makes everything so much easier. And when you play as Peach, obviously she hovers a lot farther than any other character. It makes the entire game a little bit easier. So you can find a character that will help kind of take the edge off the difficulty of the game. But if I'm a parent, it would be hard for me to buy this for my kids because I feel like basically what would end up happening is they're going to come to you constantly telling you to help them get through each level. Maybe you like that. Maybe when your kids are playing games, that's your time to do something else.
I think you may be underestimating the children.
Well, I guess you define children. I'm talking about kids from like 4 to like 7 or 8.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like tweens or whatever. Tweens will kick my butt at this game. I can pretty much guarantee it. But I think my big sticking point is the price tag. $60 for this game is steep. It's not seem steep. It is steep. You have this code laying around for the last 6 years. You haven't really done much with it before you brought it to market. To me, the Luigi U stuff doesn't rationalize, and I'm sure that's how Nintendo's rationalized it, but we're giving you 2 games in one. Because remember, Luigi U was released as a separate game.
Yeah. Although they did bundle it eventually.
They did. But I am guessing that if you own Luigi U for Wii U, that game might be worth some money.
The solo one? Maybe.
Because they put out boxed versions.
Almost all of the sealed stuff from any Nintendo system becomes worth something eventually.
But I'm guessing Luigi U is worth a little more than the average. Because it just didn't sell very much. I don't know if they even made that many of them, to be honest with you. Because a lot of people just got it as DLC for the game that they already had. So I've enjoyed this more than I thought I would. Is that enough for me to recommend it as a $60 purchase? No. And unfortunately with Nintendo, you can't really say wait for the price drop because they may never come.
It could be years.
It literally
could probably get a decent price on it like 2 or 3 years from now on the eShop or whatever they call it by then. Because I got Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U for like $19 on a digital sale near the end of the Wii U's life. But because Nintendo does do some pretty decent sales once these things get old enough. But the problem is if you want a physical copy, the price drop is usually not there.
And you go on eBay and they're almost the same price as new.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard for me to recommend this game. If you were really jonesing for a 2D Mario fix and you missed the Wii U and you haven't played one, maybe you played the last one on your 3DS or whatever, maybe I could...
If you wait a little bit, you'll probably be able to get it for like $40, $45 on the major retail sites.
Probably.
Before it goes out of print.
Yeah.
Because they're going to want to clear this thing out eventually.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think it sold all that well the first time. I'm sure it's in the top 10 of Wii U games sold in general, because it's a 2D Mario game, but...
it's probably doing okay right now, just because there's not much else to buy.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I also feel like this is a pretty solid digital purchase.
Why?
Just because it's kind of an impulse buy, maybe, and like you've probably got... I'd say a lot of Mario fans probably have gift cards from Christmas or something, and they got the eShop points or something or whatever they are now. And is it not called the eShop anymore?
It is. It's still called the eShop. Yeah.
But they, it seems like a decent. What else are you gonna get? I mean, it's that. Well, I'll tell you what else you're gonna get. You get that Phantasy Star release they put out in December.
Yeah, the Sega Ages stuff.
Yeah, that's a great It's a remake of because they've got a map and they've got all the everything's all modernized.
They updated it. Yeah.
It's great. It's only $20. That's what I bought.
Yeah. So. And Outrun, I think, just came out.
Yeah,
for
Outrun
Switch
just
this
came
week
out
as well.
Sega Ages, the Sega Ages like digital releases on Switch are actually some of the best stuff coming right now.
Yeah, they're actually showing some care towards them, and Sega has not done that in the past.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they put their stuff on mobile, and they're like just these awkward like emulator ROMs.
But the Phantasy Star thing, the Phantasy Star is a permutation of the version they released on PS2 that was only in Japan. Yeah. They put out, it was a collection of all 4, like redone for the PS2. In Japan, it was amazing, but the great thing was it was also in English. Like so I actually imported it and played those games again because I love the Phantasy Star games. But if they want to port all that stuff over to the Switch, you can go right ahead and do that, and I will buy every single one of them. So
Matt, what do you think the right price is for these sort of straight ports from Wii U to Switch?
I mean, I would like to see them be $40.
That's what I think too. Yeah.
Both in the sense that they're old games, and also in the sense that like. Throw the Switch owners a bone, dude. Yeah. Like they
need one.
They're here for you. You know, they're made you a success again. They're, these games are not brand new releases, so don't price them as one. Basically, I mean,
that's what I say. $40 to me.
$40 is about
sense.
Right.
Yeah,
I would say for most stuff, especially something like when you're talking about something like Wonderful 101, which didn't sell too well in the first place.
Yeah,
like just get that in the hands of more people for that
absolutely.
Price.
Yep.
Because it's a great game. Just people didn't take the $60
It's a
plunge.
weird game.
It is very weird.
It's one of the weirdest games I've played in the last 10 years.
But for $40, people are probably more willing to take the jump for a weird game.
I will also admit and say that there aren't that many weird games anymore compared to how they used to be. Like in the PS2 era, like there were weird games like all the time.
Well, I think there's weird games in the kind of the indie space more. I would call
even they're not that weird though.
Yeah, they're pretty weird.
Like Donut County was weird.
Donut County is weird. I would argue that Return of the Obra Dinn is pretty weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
the art style makes it weird.
It's not like it's not Incredible Crisis weird,
right.
But it's not no one can stop Mr. Domino weird.
But see, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, you can go on and on during that era of games of all the interesting things that were being tried. Like, it's just developers and publishers are playing it so safe now. It's like you just don't get games like that anymore.
Well, also, like the market has proven that kind of thing sells a certain amount, and that's Suda 51 stuff sells what it sells. Swery's stuff sells what it sells, but it's not going to be a multi-million hit.
Was Inafune the head of Wonderful 101? Is that right? For some reason, I keep thinking he was involved with that.
I think he was involved with that, yeah, because that was off of the Beautiful Joe kind of...
synergy. Yeah, I think so.
Because that was before the Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear soon that game is going to be...
Of all the things that are not on the Switch from the Wii U right now, that one stands out the most, I would say.
And like you said, if you release it at a $40 price point, people are more willing to give it a try because it does look weird, and it is weird.
I mean, they need to fill schedule slots this year. Yeah. I would say that's a good one. I think we should see. I mean, I'm not saying we should in the sense that we are going to, but I'm saying they should do this. They should put Wind Waker HD and Skyward Sword HD on.
Those are no-brainers too. Yeah.
They should put Metroid Trilogy on the Switch. Yep. They should bring all that stuff forward. And I know they just data mined Super Nintendo stuff out of the, hurry up. What the hell?
Do you even care about the Nintendo Online stuff, like on the NES cycle?
I mean, you give me some decent Super Nintendo stuff, and I'll care.
I haven't touched it.
I don't care about the NES
since the first
stuff.
day I paid for Nintendo Online, and I checked out the games that were there. I haven't even looked at them since.
The NES things don't. I mean, I have them so many times over from the various Nintendo systems. I don't need to play Super Mario 3 again. Like,
I'm paying $20 just to play online, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it's cool that they do like the weird permutations where some of them are like those special editions where you start later in the game with certain powers or whatever. This is like an extra challenge thing or an extra bonus. That's cool. But
they're trying to put lipstick on the pig.
Right, but I'd rather see you do that with like Link to the Past.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Yep.
Super Metroid. Yeah, that's actually, I saw that's a new version of it's a Super Metroid Link to the Past randomizer game where like it's like an emulator thing where you play it and it's got both Super Metroid and Link to the Past running in it. And it's like you complete sections of each game, and it'll randomly pop another section of one of the games up like next, and you have to kind of like work your way through, beat Mother Brain and Ganon, and finish the game. And
that is awesome.
And the reason it works apparently is because the Super Nintendo's memory is divided into 256 partitions, and this guy figured out that Super Metroid and Link to the Past occupy totally different partitions of when you're running them, they don't overlap in the memory, so you can run them both at the same time. So that's how that works.
That's cool.
You can find that on. You just do a Google search for that, and you can find it's pretty cool.
We didn't tell you to get it.
You got to know. You got to know Zelda real well, because it'll start you just somewhere, and like you got no sword. Like you got to go find your house and get the sword out of the chest. Like it's for experts basically.
Sounds cool.
It's neat.
But we didn't tell you to go download it.
But you don't have to take my word for it.
Take the internet. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk next about what is undoubtedly the biggest story from the last week, and that is that Bungie and Activision have split ways, and Bungie is going to retain the rights to Destiny. This actually happened mid last week.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of time to ruminate on it. Matt, what do you think is going to be the end result of this? Let's start with Destiny. What do you think is going to happen to Destiny?
I think that's the end of Destiny 2 content, and we'll see Destiny 3 in 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so do you think 2021?
2021-ish, yeah.
Because now that there's no Activision, Bungie can take as long as it wants.
Bungie can do whatever it wants. I mean, I don't know if they'll hook up with somebody else or if they'll just like fund it on their own. I'm sure they'd prefer to fund it on their own. I would not like. I feel like Destiny 3 might not be called Destiny 3.
Really?
Like I think they might call it like Destiny
Subtitle.
Something, and that will just be the platform.
Interesting.
Forever. Like they'll just keep updating that forever. Because I feel like they don't necessarily want to keep selling numeraled Destiny games, because
the deal that Bungie made with Activision was completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
It was basically they had to put out 4 games in like 8 years. Like they had 2 years to make each game. And as soon as the first Destiny was delayed, it was like dominoes. Yeah. And there was no way they're going to hit the target on all the rest of them.
And what a weird style of game to do that with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the last genre. You would say, hey, let's put out a game every 2 years.
Especially from the Activision wanting that. It's like, you guys did, indirectly did World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like, Destiny should be done by that model, not by... I mean, in the end, it's kind of good they didn't, because Destiny 2 needed an overhaul from what 1 was that didn't quite work out. But again, you could argue that...
But see, that was forced out.
Yeah, it became kind of because it was part of the deal and how that worked. And so
they were looking down the road, and they're like, wait, we have to get 3 more of these out in the next, 7 years? Like, how are we going to do that if we don't put this one out right now?
What are we, EA making Star Wars games? Come on.
And to be honest with you, I think that's probably what happened with Destiny 2. It was better, but you could tell there was still stuff with it that they probably would have preferred to get right before it was sent to retail.
So my guess would be that they will make the Destiny they've wanted to make, and it will be a platform they can build on for as long as they want to keep making Destiny. Like, I don't think you're ever going to see another Destiny. I don't think you're going to see Destiny 4. You know what I mean?
They don't have to now.
Even though 4 was part of the deal originally.
Yeah.
I think the smart move is just to keep growing this the way, because look, the one thing that Destiny 2 did prove is that people will come back and give your expansions a shot.
Although Destiny 2 did not sell as well as Destiny 1.
It did not, but the player base, pops back up every time they put a major update out.
Yeah.
So you can get people's attention without releasing a whole new SKU. That's what I'm saying. Is like, and they did the thing with Forsaken where they did kind of a bundle thing. You can buy, jump in now sort of thing. You can do, but I think the smart move would be to create, basically make the next Destiny an ongoing platform, and then just continue to add content to that, and maybe that frees you up also as a company to make another game, that isn't Destiny.
Do you think that's going to happen though?
I don't know.
So they got a small investment from NetEase, I think it was. Mm-hmm. It wasn't huge. But do you think that Bungie wants to have an overlord again? Because it obviously got fed up with dealing with Microsoft. It wanted to do its own thing. It shacks up with Activision. That worked for, 4 or 5 years before it grew tired of Activision meddling in its projects. Do you think Bungie wants to have that business relationship again?
I don't think anybody does. But
it's kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah, I don't know who you go to for this, because anyone who's powerful and flush with cash enough to get you there, is going to put you through the same ringer Activision
Absolutely.
did.
I mean, if they're giving you the money, they're going to want some control in what's going on. They're going to want to know when releases are coming out. I mean, the other problem, too, is that Activision is a publicly traded company. And their stockholders rely on those steady releases. Pachter mentioned in the brand new episode that we published yesterday that, if you're a public company, you're beholden to your stockholders, and they expect that regular update. And he said that that's why, if you've watched, Take-Two's stock has tanked because Red Dead came out. And now they're like, well, wait a minute. When is the next big game coming? They have no idea. So a lot of stockholders have bailed on Take-Two over the last, 60 days. And I guess they assume that the stock price that Take-Two was at whenever Red Dead Redemption 2 came out already had Red Dead 2 baked into that stock price. Once it came out, everybody just bailed on the stock. And that's what Activision is worried about. And so it was never going to work working with Bungie and Activision. It just wasn't. They're two different companies. Bungie had a lot more leeway at Microsoft to just get the game done whenever they wanted to.
I mean, it's not impossible that they end up going back to Microsoft.
Do you think?
I mean, if you could strike a deal with Microsoft where it's like, give us the money, let us do whatever the hell we want. Remember when we gave you Halo? Let us make what we want to make. We can distribute it through Game Pass and just, charge for the expansions or whatever and kind of get it into people's hands that way. Subscribe and get new Destiny for free. You alienate the PlayStation people, so maybe they wouldn't want to do that, but it depends. Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, it's going to become about survival for Bungie.
I honestly don't think Bungie will ever want to go back to publishing games for just one platform.
Oh, no, I don't think they'd want to, but I'm saying they might have to.
Especially if they stay independent.
Yeah. Well, that's the question. If they stay independent, no. But if they can't stay independent, you're basically going to Sony or Microsoft at that point.
They had enough cash to buy themselves out of the deal with Activision.
True, but where there's more cash coming from now.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. So what happens with Destiny 1 and Destiny 2?
Well,
you mentioned that you don't think more DLC is coming. I'm not 100% sure about that. But what do you?
Well, I mean, there might be stuff in the pipeline, but I don't think any new expansions.
Yeah. They're not going to just start concepting something now and then put it out a year from now. Whatever they're working on now will be probably the last content for Destiny 2. But what do you do with those two platforms once you start work on Destiny 3 in earnest?
I mean, I would think they've already got some pre-production down for Destiny 3.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard for me to say. I mean,
do you make them free to play?
I feel like they always wanted it to be, and Activision didn't want to do that. I mean, I have no evidence of that. I have no proof of that. But in my head, I feel like you want to basically give the razor away and make money on the blades, and it would make more sense. I think that's also true of a whole lot of people I think were convinced to play the original Destiny when they played that alpha.
Yep.
For sure. Because they got their hands on it, felt good, and they wanted to play more. Same thing happened with The Division. Get it in someone's hands and then make the money later. And that's a fine, okay business model when it comes to something that you get for free. I think there's the friction they get on the microtransactions and stuff comes mainly from the fact that they're already charging $60 or more to play the game at all, which seems to be an Activision staple. Yeah. I mean, it's so Activision-y to do that. Even the Blizzard stuff is like that. You still got to pay to get in, or you did for a long time to pay to get into World of Warcraft, and then give them more money for the expansions, or you're playing kind of.
And pay a monthly fee.
Yeah, and the monthly fee. So I feel like that would probably be what they'd want to do. Ideally,
is kind of a double-edged sword, though, right? Because it's okay, sure, you can get all these people into the Destiny ecosystem in hopes that when Destiny 3 comes out, they all jump on board.
Yeah.
Or you could look at it like you give them Destiny 2 for free, and they pay for cosmetics, and they don't want to leave Destiny 2 because they're like, this is plenty good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, that's why Destiny 3's got to be something real special, and obviously special.
Yeah. And different. It's got to be something different, right?
Yeah. Frankly, I would want to move on from Destiny if I were
If you were Bungie, you would just trash Destiny altogether.
Well, no, I wouldn't, because I think you don't want to start over from scratch on something else you have to sell as something that people care about.
Building that brand, that IP, that's a lot of money, a lot of effort.
But as someone, as a player, I would be more interested in something new from them. But I know I'm not going to get that.
Yeah. I've never enjoyed Destiny even half as much as I enjoyed the best Halo games.
No. I think that Destiny 2's campaign felt more like Halo.
It did.
It felt like it was from the same people who made Halo.
Agreed.
In the way that like Titanfall 2's campaign felt like it was from the people who made Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
It was a good thing. But I still don't find the universe of Destiny to be particularly compelling.
Me either.
And
it's confusing to me. I don't understand.
I think they need to reinvent things on a fundamental level that of everything that is not pointing guns and shooting them.
Yeah.
Like why do I have all these ships that I can use when all they are is a loading screen?
Yeah.
Like why like running around doing these kind of mundane things in the hubs is like fine, but what's the point? Like I feel like there's all these sort of like weird like creative or like feature dead ends in the game that sort of like are just sort of you're just supposed to like look at them and sort of ignore them. And I feel like Bungie's never done what they really want to do with this thing. And that's what I'd like to see them sort of come, realize what's in their heads for this game, because I feel like we still haven't gotten that.
You got to remember, too, Bungie has a bunch of old IP lying around that it could do stuff with. It's got Oni and...
No, I don't think they own that anymore.
Oh, really? Does Microsoft own it?
No, they sold Oni and Myth to somebody.
Did they?
They still have Marathon, but they don't have... I think they still have Marathon.
Interesting. I thought that they did.
No, they got.
Well, then they're really SOL. Then
they
so
sold.
That's all that
they
Destiny's
definitely
all
don't.
They have.
Unless Oni reverted back, they definitely sold off Oni and Myth, which is too bad because I would love to see another Myth game. Although then again, I would not want to see another Myth game without Marty O'Donnell's music.
Right. Well, there are rumors that he's starting to work on Halo stuff again.
Yeah. Which is really good news for Halo.
It is, but it's not going to help Bungie. There's no way he's going back to Bungie.
Not after that.
No way, and I don't blame him one bit.
I mean, we might be looking at the beginning of the end for Bungie here.
That's what I'm wondering, yeah.
Like, it would take like 4 to 5 years, but like, I wonder if they're ever going to find their feet on this.
Who do you think initiated this? Do you think it was Activision or Bungie?
I think it was Bungie.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Activision was happy with any of this. I feel like Activision was probably like, this is not performing up to what we were expecting it to be when we hired the guys who invented Halo to make us games. Also, you're like 2 games behind.
Yeah.
Like here, and I feel like it was probably initiated by Activision in terms of like, hey, this isn't working. Like you're not, this contract is not being properly fulfilled. But I suspect it was Bungie who said like, all right, well then let us go. We'll buy ourselves out. Like, that sounds like a very Bungie thing to do. Like, I'm surprised
I'd
Activision
agree with that,
would.
Financially, it's hard for me to get to the place where Bungie would say, "Yeah, we're tired of this warm bosom that Activision gives us to nestle up to."
Bungie's corporate DNA is very rebellious and very. Not that like a whole lot of the original guys are still there, but like. I guarantee you they chafe at every note Activision gives them, and like,
I'm sure.
And I could see them, thinking that because of the strength of what they do and how they do it, the brass at Bungie could think like, we don't need you, and if we ever do get in trouble, almost any other publisher in the world will snap us up and save us.
I'm not so sure about that though.
I don't know. Like, I mean, Activision's management style is so kind of widely like snorted at by even like other major publishers. Like there's sort of that, I think that's one of the, like we said last week, I think about Fallen Jedi, it's like talking about the Star Wars license. It's like, why would you go to EA? Well, because there's only like 3 publishers who have the size and clout to make what you want scope-wise in these Star Wars games. And it's basically, Ubisoft wasn't quite there at the time. They are now, but they weren't really quite. You saw it happen. You saw it warming up in 2012, but they weren't the juggernaut quite that they have become now in terms of just constant output of that level of, if production value, if not quality, depending on how you feel about Ubisoft's games. But Activision is definitely on that level. But I think it's just sort of universal that you look at Activision and you're like, God, I don't want to deal with that. Like, and Activision's become such a small. They're not a small publisher because of the volume they deal in with, but they don't put a lot out.
Yeah.
They put out COD and they put out Blizzard stuff.
A lot of remakes.
And they put out Crash remakes.
Right. Like,
that's it.
Spyro, yeah.
And so like I mean,
Activision's publishing Sekiro.
Yeah.
which is very weird for Activision. Yeah. It's very, very weird.
Like there's sort of that feeling of like you sort of assumed that was going to be like Atlas.
Right, or some Japanese publisher. Definitely not Activision.
But like, yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like Activision was kind of like, we're still having trouble with this, and Bungie maybe, I feel like Bungie is probably the one that proposed the nuclear option.
I mean, ultimately, Bungie did not live up to a contract it signed.
And there were other ways to get out. I mean, you could shut the whole thing down, or Activision could be like, we are going to assume direct control. If I may be allowed a Mass Effect reference.
Yeah.
And Bungie, I'm sure, wouldn't want that. I'd be very interested to find out how this solution ended up being the one Activision agreed to.
Yeah.
Unless they just absolutely did not want to deal with this Destiny shit.
It's probably just lesser of several evils.
Probably.
It's like, wait a minute, you're willing to buy yourself out of the contract, and we don't have to take you to court and spend $4 million on lawyers' fees and drag this through the press again.
I mean, there's
because look, Activision already went through this with Vince Zampella.
Yeah.
And the whole Modern Warfare thing.
There's a real interesting Jason Schreier book in here.
Yeah.
Someday.
I'm sure he'll probably end up uncovering all the details behind this. But yeah, I'm not convinced that it was Bungie that bailed, though. I think it may have just been like
I feel like it was
a come-to-Jesus moment where they both got together and they're like, okay, let's talk frankly about what's going on here. You're not satisfying your end of the contract. We love you guys, but this isn't working for us financially. What can we do?
That doesn't sound like Activision to me. It sounds like Activision would be demanding what explain yourselves or solve this.
But they've been working with them for 6 years. They don't really have to explain themselves. At this point, Activision knows what's going on. It knows why it's taking forever for the games to come out.
But I know people who have worked for Activision for longer than that who can tell you tales of like. That's how Activision behaves like a monolith.
It is a cold-blooded corporate America. Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Kotick didn't get where he is by having a touchy-feely management style.
No, definitely not.
If the brass of Activision comes down on you, you are basically the eye of Sauron is quite literally on you. So I wonder whose idea it was for them to buy themselves out, but it feels like. That is a move that empowers Bungie, and thus it doesn't sound like something Activision would propose. It doesn't even sound like something Activision would agree to. But I think the internal politics of it may have just been more expedient, and also maybe you had it like you say. Maybe there was a thing where it's like, okay, I mean, you could try to assume direct control of the projects, but we're going to legally go after you for that. I think you may be right that like the Call of Duty lawsuit sort of made Activision a little gun shy about playing hardball with another
and I think
second
they just
party
got together
developer.
And they said, hey, how can both of us get out of this?
Yeah, hey, let's not create that again because that's years and years.
And Activision lost. And ended up having to pay those guys like hundreds of millions of dollars.
And if you're in the situation where like Bungie has to do that and has to pay legal fees for that, they definitely would have to jump to another publisher just to stay afloat.
Yeah, just to use
afford
their legal team basically. So
so this is definitely the best outcome if you're Bungie. I would
definitely.
say.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the best outcome for Activision, too.
Yeah, it may still go sideways on them if the next thing doesn't do it for them.
Bungie bought themselves out of the contract, so Activision was able to save face. They did put out 2 pretty good games together. It's not like neither one of them was a disaster or unplayable or completely unfun. It didn't hit the critical mass I think both sides had hoped for, but...
Yeah. I do think it's weird that so many people seem to think that like the microtransactions in Destiny are entirely Activision's idea.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's just
it's easy to say that. Most hardcore gamers hate Activision. I mean, let's just be honest.
But like the nature of the game is that's how you keep it going.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point.
Absolutely. That's how it works.
I mean, they might have been implemented less dumb, but like they'd still be there if Activision wasn't publishing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think ultimately the situation's worked out as well as it could for both sides. Still a shock to hear this mainly because we knew they were still under contract for 2 more games.
It's also like kind of a weird thing where like, I mean, these games haven't set the world on fire, but they've done pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, most publishers
they've made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars
for this game,
and it's just interesting.
For this
it's
kind
interesting
of
to see like Activision's in that realm where
the
they're
hierarchy.
Like if you don't make $1 billion a year for us, we don't really want you in our portfolio.
Pretty much. I mean, that's really what it comes down. Which doesn't explain how they get away with like doing a Crash Team Racing remake or a Spyro remake or whatever.
Except that Crash thing sold like crazy.
Actually, it did sell like crazy. Yeah, it's true. I don't think it made $1 billion. But
no, but I think it made vastly more money than they thought.
Ever anticipated.
A remaster of Crash games was going to.
It definitely made more than I thought it was going to make.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize how many people
either had never played Crash.
Oh, I think most of those sales were people who were 8 years old and didn't know any better when they played it, because those games suck.
I know, dude. I know.
But I was like 20 when they came out, and that's just how it was.
Yeah.
It's like they say, the golden age of science fiction is when you were 12.
Right. It wasn't when.
It's not a specific
it's
time.
It's not when the movies were coming out.
It's a specific
It's
age
when
you
were. You were 12. Yeah, you were a total sucker for sci-fi. Absolutely.
It's like when people ask, it's like, why do you love Star Wars so much? I'm like, because I saw it when I was 5, and laser swords and space wizards are awesome.
Yeah, it's like.
I mean, I could come up with a bunch of intellectual shit that keeps me interested as an adult in it, but like, if you really want to get down to it, laser swords and spaceships.
I mean, it's indoctrination. Yeah. I mean, it's just what it is. When you're young, you're very gullible. You absorb everything. You're very impressionable.
I don't remember a time I couldn't hum that John Williams theme.
Absolutely.
So you got me.
Yeah. It's just like it's the reason your parents can mold the person that you become, because when you're young, you're malleable, and you're just soaking everything in.
And some of us had Star Wars, and some of us had Crash Bandicoot, and I apologize for that. But 20 years later, you can sell a really lucrative collection of those games again to the same people. So.
Okay, so before we move on, what do you think is the end game here? You think Bungie gets picked up by another publisher, or you think they stay indie?
I think they're going to try to stay indie. I don't know how long that will fly. I mean, but if I'm them and I just did this, like, to me, the whole point would be independence.
Yeah.
So I think at the very least, they are going to attempt to make another Destiny game all on their own and self-publish.
I'd agree with that. I think, again, I don't think that they buy themselves out of this contract if they just wanted to go shack up with another publisher.
Right.
So I agree 1,000%. I think it's going to be indie.
Because at that point, you basically bring in the new publisher to help buy you out of the old contract.
I think Bungie will take investment from someone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the way it'll be written up is whoever invests gets X amount of the profits of the game. They don't own the IP. They don't take over the IP.
You're profit sharing, and maybe you get some like placement at the beginning when they start the game up. You get your logo there.
They have no creative input on the game. Basically, they're saying, look, if you give us money, you're trusting us to make a great game, because you're going to be incentivized to let us do our thing, because you're making all your money based upon how it sells. Cut. So
maybe you can have the Iron Banner tournament brought to you by Gillette,
right, or whatever. Yeah, like something like that, I think will work. So I think Bungie absolutely puts out Destiny 3. I think what we were talking about earlier about how it's kind of mind-boggling to think about how Activision wouldn't be okay with the money it was making from Destiny. I think Bungie is absolutely fine with making that money. It's like, wait a minute, like, you don't want that money? We'll take it. That's more than enough for us to flourish and start cracking out separate studios, so we can do what you were saying, which is have more than one project going on at once.
That would be like the ideal outcome, I would think.
Absolutely.
Because I would love to see new Bungie stuff more often.
What if Microsoft commissioned Bungie to make a Halo?
They could do worse.
They can do that.
Yeah.
They can do
if
that.
Halo Infinite comes out and does not perform the way they want it to.
They could put their studio on something, new IP, and they could absolutely pay Bungie to make another Halo. Absolutely. That's kind of exciting to me.
Yeah. Be neat.
And I wonder, though, does it matter anymore? Because it's like you talk about Rare, and Rare, Nintendo sells Rare, and then all their talent leaves and goes scattered across, and then they're never the same anymore.
Maybe.
Bungie, kind of the same deal.
Bungie's sort of the same deal, but like we'll see what the developments are. But if Bungie does manage to remain independent and is able to start making this game the way they've always wanted to make it, which I feel like they have been prevented from doing in various ways by Activision, you could attract some of that talent back. Like, if you're like, hey, we're
getting the band back together.
Getting the band back together, and we fire the manager. Like,
right.
That could be an appealing thing.
It's true.
You don't have remember, you don't have a huge opportunity very often in the modern industry to work at a company as high profile and as AAA budget level as Bungie that does not have some kind of crazy corporate overlord situation.
True.
Like, you don't get to do that much. So
like
that
never.
could be, yeah.
Like never.
Most of the last companies that could do something like that were bought by EA years ago.
Yep, it's true.
So it could also just be, hey, here's a unique opportunity to work on a high-profile major title without Activision, EA, or Ubisoft breathing down your neck for it.
Yep.
Because there's not really many companies that can do that. Those mid to high tier independent developers just are getting bought by Microsoft now.
Yeah.
Look out, Gearbox.
Yeah.
One of the last ones
We'll
left.
talk about Gearbox in a little
Yeah.
bit. We'll get to them. But
they're one of the only other companies that popped in my head that are kind of on that same playing field as Bungie is right now.
Yep. I think bottom line, this is better for Bungie on every level. It's going to be better for Destiny. It's going to be better for the studio.
I think it's always better for you if you're not working for Activision, frankly.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't hate Activision like a lot of people do.
I don't hate
it.
it,
Probably because I know a lot of people that work there, and they're all really good people.
Yeah, but even the people I know who make games under Activision don't like doing it for Activision. They're a ruthless company. There's sort of an understood thing in the industry that if your title is a certain thing at Activision, you can do the job of the next title up at any other company because Activision
doesn't want to pay its
Activision
people,
doesn't want to pay you what you're worth. Yeah, so they
Yeah.
just give you the responsibilities of the next highest position but keep you at that pay level. So most other companies have a kind of an acknowledged thing. Like if you're like an associate,
You're a VP at
if you're an
Activision,
associate producer
you
at
could be an
Activision,
SVP here.
or like you're an associate producer at Activision, you could be a straight up producer or a division producer somewhere else, because you probably had to do that without being paid for it.
Yep.
So yeah, I like some of what Activision puts up, and I've never had to deal with them in a negative way. But everyone I know who's ever worked for them wasn't tremendously unhappy to see the back of them.
There also aren't a lot of lifers there.
No,
Studio heads have stuck around a long time.
High level, yeah. High level, I'm sure it's fine, but because it's probably not all that different from any other major corporate executive job. But everyone I knew who was in creative, I'm here to get my title up to this, so then I can bump it up to this when I go to another company. That's what most of them were doing, especially in the days where Activision was pumping out all the licensed stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably not as prevalent now because Activision's basically shrunk so much to the point that they do this thing and they do 3 things basically, and that's it.
But they all do gigantic.
Yeah, well, I mean, the COD machine is not any kind of small endeavor. It's
No, that's
tons of developers
and
hundreds and hundreds of people,
all working on that one IP.
But it's all in the name of one thing.
Yeah.
So
one brand, absolutely.
It's and when you compare it to what they used to put out, they let High Moon put out these crazy ambitious Transformers games, and they made all those weird Marvel games back in. Some of them were terrible, but some of them were pretty interesting. Some of the genesis of Into the Spider-Verse you can see in Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Some of the same Spider-Men even.
Yep.
So there was some experimentation. There was some really creative people doing some really interesting stuff, but there was always that feeling of we're working for
the man.
We're working for this giant faceless behemoth kind of thing.
I suspect.
And I'm sure Bungie, whose entire corporate DNA, their entire corporate culture is based on sort of being renegades.
Yeah.
I'm sure they chafed against that constantly. So.
Yeah, they're the wearing Birkenstocks to work crew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they started as just a bunch of scrappy liberal arts kids in Chicago who decided to make a Doom clone.
I remember the first
accidentally made one of the best games of the 90s.
Yeah, I remember when I first went to their studio in Seattle, I was blown away that it wasn't nice.
Yeah.
It was just kind of this dingy office in an office park that no signage, no frills. It was just this is Bungie?
No,
this is where you made all these Halo games?
I mean, they were doing stuff out of dorm rooms and stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
And
they had that startup spirit in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I remember booting up the demo of Marathon 2, which I'd spent all night downloading all 50 megs of it. And that Marty O'Donnell's Marathon theme pops up. I'm like, what the hell is this? It was it didn't sound like anything else out there. It was this weird sort of techno sort of hard
sci-fi
guitar thing.
It's
Marathon.
I remember it.
I was whoa, that's cool. There wasn't anything else like that.
Yeah.
Then,
I mean, there wasn't really anything like Halo when it came out. I mean, it was a first-person shooter, but just the aesthetics of it, the way they handled kind of its sci-fi angle was very unique.
Well, it wasn't unique because it was Marathon.
Right.
It was the Halo originally was basically a Marathon.
It was,
spin-off.
yeah, like an RTS.
And they do more or less fit in the same universe, even if like they wouldn't really ever commit to that.
Yeah.
But the frickin' Marathon symbol showed up often enough.
It did, yeah.
But Bungie today is a different beast. But like I always appreciated they came from this scrappy place, and everybody made fun of the whole like Microsoft putting Halo on the Xbox, like because that was the other thing was like. Because they were Mac only developers. That's the thing is like a lot of people have never played their early games because they're only on Mac.
Yeah.
And they're really good. I had a Mac back when I was in college and played all those things. And they're Myth is a great game. They actually did do Windows versions of that eventually. But when they got bought by Microsoft, the Mac gaming community, what there was of it was like betrayal.
Well, back then too, the Apple versus PC thing was like huge. I mean, there used to be TV commercials about it, like Mac versus PC,
which was always, even as someone who's used Apple stuff since like '86, that was not a war. Like there was. I have an entire box in the garage of Mac versions of games from like '94 to like 2002 or so when I got my gaming PC and never looked back.
Yeah.
But man, I have so many like weird Mac versions of things. Part of me wonders like, do like archivists need this, or do you need the Mac version of Baldur's Gate for something?
No archivists needed for anything Apple related.
I don't know. I think you want to preserve everything.
People are crazy.
I think you want to preserve.
No, you want to preserve it, but
everything.
I'm telling you, there are thousands of people who have already done it.
I'm sure, but like I have the physical copies; they disappear pretty quickly.
I bet they have them. But
someone out there, somebody needs a Mac OS 7. I don't even remember System 7. They call it System 7.
Yeah, it wasn't even OS.
System 7 version of Aliens versus Predator 2.
I'm your Mac.
Got you covered.
I got you. So my guess is we hear more at E3. I think we'll find out what's going on with Destiny 3. We'll find out. Maybe we'll hear about some investment.
We get a Bungie Direct.
Yeah, I think we'll hear about maybe investment before then. But I think we'll hear what's going to happen with Bungie's actual IP, brands, and projects around E3. That's my guess.
I'm curious what IP they still have.
Destiny
and maybe Marathon. I don't know if Marathon became Microsoft's.
Myth, maybe.
No, they don't have Myth. They sold Myth off before they got purchased by Microsoft.
Okay.
Oni and Myth they sold off before Microsoft.
Who would have bought Oni?
I can't remember who bought Oni.
It's like,
but Oni, whoever put it out on PS2, because Bungie wasn't involved in that.
Right. Yeah.
Myth they sold off before, maybe even before that, because the third Myth was not by them.
Well, they probably figured we need to sell this off now because otherwise Microsoft's going to sell it and make all the money from it.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. I don't. The Myth sale was kind of weird, if I recall. Like it was before I think this being sold to Microsoft. I wonder if the Myth sale was because they needed cash. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because then I can't remember who they sold that to. Maybe Take-Two. I think Take-Two owns Myth. I don't know if they own Oni as well.
Interesting. So there you go. It's a bad breakup.
Yeah.
But not really that bad.
And let's not forget that their version, when they made Myth 2 for Windows, there was an error in it that caused it to uninstall your computer.
I did not know that.
It was one of the earliest.
How do you uninstall your computer?
I don't remember the details, but it was one of the earliest penny arcades.
Does it like wipe Windows or something?
Yeah, pretty much. Instead of uninstalling Myth 2, it just uninstalls. I think it just uninstalled like the Windows.
Like
directory.
the operating system.
It just deleted everything.
Oh my gosh.
There's one of the earliest penny arcade comics, like maybe like the second or third one. Has them running out of the house, and the house explodes, and Tycho says, "I told you not to uninstall Myth 2."
That's pretty good.
Which is
that just made me laugh more than any penny arcade has from the last since Sifted launched. They're really on a bad run.
Yeah, they used to be amazing though.
Yeah. I mean,
the one
even during the GT days, their comics were great.
What was the one where they did State of Emergency, the original State of Emergency one, and like
I don't think I remember that one.
Gabe bought it and like is playing it and Tycho's like, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. And then like 8 hours later, it's like Gabe's like, it's like, I don't know why I'm still playing this. Maybe I could just tape the button down. And then it cuts to him trying to return it at the GameStop, and the clerk's like, you just bought this yesterday. And he says, I'll buy you yesterday. That doesn't even make any sense. And to this day, Sessler and I quote that one.
I'll buy you yesterday.
Anything's happens like da-da-da-da-da, I'll buy you yesterday. And I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like that's everything. Anything imaginable. So we still reference that one.
Yeah.
That was old Tech TV days.
I will say I am happy about this news.
Yeah,
I think
it's great.
it's good for Bungie.
I'm happy to see
Destiny.
Bungie freed from their shackles, and I'm very curious to see what Destiny becomes when they're freed of sort of the corporate overlord thing. And I hope they get the funding to give themselves the time they need to make it what they think that needs to be. I hope the ship thing finally becomes what it's supposed to. I've always felt the ship thing was like this weird dangling
couldn't
thing
get it done.
that like they wanted to do something with, but it never happened.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like some kind of like No Man's Sky-ish sort of flying back
What
and
is
forth
weird
thing.
to be a space sci-fi franchise where you
No
don't
space-
actually fly the spaceship.
Like at the very least, it feels like they intended that to be some kind of like gummy ship thing
Right.
at some point, like
Yeah.
where you have to like do a little like shooter sequence to get to from planet
where
to
you're
planet.
going. Yeah.
But just they would never have the time to do something that frivolous or unnecessary.
Yeah.
But like I'd like
Maybe
to
they
see
do
it.
now.
Look, I'm a big spaceship shooting fan, so I'd be into that.
It'll be interesting too to see how much Bungie can talk about their time with Activision.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you dissolve these contracts, there's a lot of non-disclosure agreements signed, and they may not be able to say, like, well, we wanted to have space combat, but we couldn't get it done, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, the best way to say that is just to do it in the next
true.
one.
Good
And be like,
point.
well, like, I'm basically going to assume any new expanded features in the next Destiny are just things
Things
they
that
always
they
want to
wanted.
do, and Activision never gave them the time or the resource. I mean, I'm sure they gave them the resources to do what they need to do, but, like,
Time is a resource.
time is definitely a resource.
A big one. Maybe the biggest of them all. As I get older, I believe, anyway. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Epic Games Store. We talked about it before we left for the holidays. It was this, and for those of you who don't know what's going on with Epic Games Store, essentially it has completely undercut Steam. So Steam takes 30% of a cut from every game sold, and Epic Games Store says, you know what, we're just going to take 12. And it just launched, I guess, about a month ago now. It's been open. By open, meaning the website's been up. And they started out, they had some exclusive games that you could only buy there. Hades, like the day it came out, it was only available
Ashen,
there.
I think.
Ashen, and this is PC only. But the biggest of them all was announced this past week when it was announced that The Division 2 from Ubisoft will only be purchasable at Epic's Game Store.
Doubly interesting because, I mean, Ubisoft has been a little sketchy about Steam for a while now. Like, there was that period where they didn't put some of their stuff
Yeah, that's right.
immediately
they've
on
had
Steam
some
because
haggles
they
with
wanted
Valve.
you to buy it through their Club Ubisoft
Yep.
app or whatever, which I never did, but like, or like, they'd let you they let Steam see the installed game through the Ubisoft app,
Right.
but you still had to do it through the Ubisoft app
Yep.
or whatever. And so it's interesting that they are now going to a different store instead of continuing to push their own, probably because nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to deal with Ubisoft Store, yeah.
No, I've got enough stupid platforms on my PC already. I mean, it's bad enough I got to have Origin on there to play SWTOR.
I mean, that's kind of the question is, what is the saturation point for these services? Like, when do you reach a point where you say, I don't want to download another frickin' app. I don't want to have my credit card information on another website where the security may or may not be good enough to keep people from getting my information. Where do we reach the point where we're just like, enough is enough? Maybe that's where Ubisoft is. Maybe it got to a point where it's like, you know what? I'm sick of all these services, and we're guilty of it because we have our own service. Maybe we need to saddle up with somebody and make it work that way. And apparently that's what it's done with Epic. If you want the PC version of The Division 2, which is coming pretty soon, you're only going to be able to buy it on Epic Games Store. Do you think this is a smart move on Ubisoft's part?
Maybe.
So Pachter made a great point in yesterday's episode when he said that, and I had totally missed this. Admittedly, I never connected these dots when we talked about Epic's Game Store's discount before. But his point was, Steam has value beyond what other services have. Because it has 150 million customers, or whatever the number is at this point, but it also has the data on all of those people. So if you're Ubisoft, you can go to Valve and you can say, look, we want to market this to, obviously, anybody who played the first Division, and we want to market it to anybody who has played all these other games as a service. Anyone who plays Anthem. We want those people to come on board, or we want to market to those people on your service.
Is Anthem going to be on Epic?
I'm just using it as an example. But, so any game as a service. They can use Valve's customer base to push it to the right people to get people to buy the game. Now, I'm guessing Epic's Game Store at this point probably has a few million accounts, something like that. So it's an equation. It's a math problem you have to work out. You have to say, okay, how much are we losing with this 30% cut? The first question you have to ask is, how many copies of PC are we selling? The second is, how much is that costing us with a 30% cut? And the third question you have to ask is, okay, how many sales are we going to lose by only selling it on Epic's Game Store? So you're assuming that people are going to find your game on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to imagine they're still selling it on their own thing, too. I don't know what kind of numbers they get.
I thought Ubisoft's thing folded. I thought
No, it's still there.
I know Uplay is still there.
Yeah,
but
what it is.
Ubisoft's store still there?
That is their store. The Club Uplay store thing, yeah. I don't know. They might have changed the name, but it's still there. It's still on my damn computer. I have to look at it to launch to get the DLC to work for some of the Assassin's Creed stuff, even the ones I have on Steam. But, no, there's still a store there. I'm sure they'll sell it through that if you want. I mean, I guess. I don't know.
But what good does that do Epic?
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to let them sell it still on their store, you have no leverage then. You're not going to get people to come to your store.
What store? Epic?
Yeah.
Well, that's Epic's problem.
If you can buy it somewhere else.
That's Epic's problem.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think Epic would be dumb enough to sign a contract letting them still sell it on their website.
I'm pretty sure you can buy the Division 2 on Ubi's own
Maybe
thing.
Somebody watching can check.
I
thought the deal was exclusivity. I thought it was exclusive to Epic Game Store.
I think it is exclusive if you don't want to buy it through Uplay.
Huh.
But I think that's the only other place you can
If that's the case, I would not have signed that deal if I was Epic. No way.
Yeah,
I would want exclusivity.
Vincent says you can still buy it through Uplay.
Wow. That's really dumb of Epic to allow that to happen.
Well, I don't think you can tell Ubisoft don't sell your own game through your own store.
Well, what good is it doing Epic, though?
It's not Steam. It's not on Steam.
Right. But if everyone's just going to buy it direct from Ubisoft...
I don't think they will.
You think more people will buy it from Epic's Game Store that just launched a month ago?
I don't know.
Because what I was talking about earlier with Steam, whereas you have that data... Ubisoft has that data.
A lot of people.
Anybody who bought Division 1 through them, they can market.
A lot of people hate Uplay. I don't know.
It's a DRM thing mostly, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, also just like some people don't like the clutter of having multiple companies' apps all over their computer, I guess.
That's what I was talking about earlier. What's the breaking point where you're like, I can't download another one of these freaking things?
Well, I mean, I probably hit that breaking point a while ago. I haven't added one. I haven't bought anything off the Epic Store yet.
Yeah, me either.
I mean, I'll probably get there eventually, but it hasn't been anything that really tempted me yet. I wish I could get rid of Origin and Uplay, but they're kind of necessary
evils. Yeah. So back to the question: how do you think this affects the sales of the Division 2? You think it does nothing?
Not much. I mean,
you don't think it'll hurt them not being on Steam?
Maybe. I mean, PC is kind of a bonus round, frankly, to most of the people, especially Ubisoft. Like, you're talking about 3 to 4 times as many sales on consoles.
Oh yeah. So I mean, even look at Call of Duty. It'll sell 100,000 copies on PC.
I mean, this thing is basically to me this is basically a test balloon. Basically,
it's a litmus test for everybody.
They're basically saying hey, let's see what happens if we do this, because we know we're going to sell a ton of this on console. We're going to sell a ton of it on PC through our Ubi store, and instead of putting it also on Steam, which what they usually would do is you'd also be able to buy it on Steam as well as Ubisoft's thing, and then you just connect it up through a code or whatever through the Uplay thing. Instead, they're going to say, well, if you don't want to buy it directly from us, you can buy it through this store instead of Steam. And they're going to see how many people bite on that, I guess, is the plan.
It's a big risk. If I were Ubisoft, I don't test this with the Division 2. I test it with, Gone Home 3 or something. It's very risky to use a big-budget game as a litmus test.
I don't know. I think you don't get the same kind of data unless you use a big-budget game. I think that's what Ubi's doing here, is they want to know the data. And the only way to find out is to do that. And since the Division was such a big console hit, I feel like they're not going to take a huge bath on this thing if the PC version underperforms by 50,000 copies or something, because it's not that big a part of their profit equation for this game, frankly. No PC version of anything is, if you're doing multi-platform stuff.
Yeah.
So I can see them just saying we are more interested in knowing the outcome of this idea than selling an extra 30 to 50,000 copies because we're on Steam instead. I can see them wanting firsthand data on that.
One thing I will say about Ubisoft is, in general, it is very brave.
True.
It tends to try stuff first, jump into stuff first.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It let some random company in Japan stream Assassin's Creed Odyssey to Switch.
Right. They also they are bold about that, and they also have the volume to absorb. Should this go completely pear-shaped somehow, and they sell nothing on PC because nobody wants it. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either.
But worst case scenario, they're like, well, half a percentage point. It's like we're okay. We'll just get the next one will sell better.
I mean, honestly, I think that it's just going to sell nothing on Epic Game Store. If it's still available on Uplay, I just think it's going to sell nothing on Epic.
I don't see why you'd think that.
So if you Google buy PC version of The Division 2, Ubisoft's link is going to come up first, unless Epic pays a ton of money to Google for favor in search results.
I just don't think it matters that much. And people are, people like the Epic Game Store. People want to support it. They'll buy it there or whatever. I don't really know firsthand how the Epic Store integrates itself or whatever. Maybe the Epic Store will have a better deal at some point. You don't know. It's because I also don't boot up the Uplay app very often.
I never have.
I look at the I open it when the game makes me open it, basically.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a game to buy, I'm looking at Steam, or I'm looking at GOG, or I'm looking at Humble Bundle, and now I guess I got to start looking at Epic. But if people are already on board of the Epic Store, seeing that, and that's where they see Division 2, and then that's what they buy it.
Yeah.
It's sort of a permutation of the iTunes Store theory, where it's like, well, how do you stop music piracy? You make it so easy to buy it legally that no one wants to go through the trouble of going to find a pirated version. And in this case, the pirated version is having to open that stupid Uplay app.
Right.
I think it's just like Ubi's going to see if this dog will hunt, and that'll be, then they'll move from there. Because it seems to me like Ubisoft is not a giant fan of Steam. Yeah. Because they've been so sketchy.
They've been trying really hard to avoid it. The interesting part, too, will be if the data becomes available to everyone. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of publishers would love to get the data on how this game does on Epic. And if it does well, Epic wants that information out there.
Yeah.
If it doesn't do well, it doesn't want that information out there. And no matter what, Ubisoft doesn't want that information out there because it's the one who paid the price to get it.
Right. Well, if you want to pay them the difference, maybe you could see the numbers. And now it's like the Division 2 sold way more copies, isn't it?
It's an interesting situation, to say the least. Mm-hmm. But I feel like everything's kind of fluid right now in the industry. Everyone's kind of testing things out. Like Pachter has talked about, a lot of big franchises going free to play. Like, I would not be surprised if we see a big franchise going free to play. He had mentioned Call of Duty Blackout maybe going free to play. He got a lot of pushback on that from people on YouTube. But then today, there's this big, gigantic free trial going up for Blackout. This starts this weekend. So you're starting to see those baby steps towards that end a little bit. I think it's exciting. We're kind of at this zenith. We're at the top of console gaming, traditional console gaming, what we know it as. And I feel like things are about to change, but really nobody has any idea which direction it's gonna go and how it's gonna spread out. And I admire companies like Ubisoft that are kind of pushing the agenda and saying, well, we want to find out where it's going, and we're willing to take the financial risk to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how that data, if it ever gets out, how it is disseminated, if it does, who puts it out. Does Epic put the information out? Or does Ubisoft put the information out?
I think Epic would, because Ubi putting it out doesn't do anybody any favors for themselves.
Yeah.
But if it's good news, I would imagine Epic. I mean, it's Epic's store; it's their data. They also, they can say, "Hey, it sold this many."
I wonder if there are contracts signed.
Well, we'll see. But Epic signing a thing that says we can't talk about how well we're doing when we do well, also seems, and it's.
Ubisoft's doing them a huge favor, though.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, it is. A AAA game, exclusive on your service?
But you just said you don't think it'll sell anything because it's also in Ubi's store.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
Maybe that's the trade-off.
That could be. We get the data. We get to release the data, because we're not going to make much money off of this. It's possible. And you get to keep it on your store.
Which is also interesting because you're still sort of working blind because nobody knows what Steam's numbers are in comparison.
Right. We just have kind of extrapolated what we believe, but
kind of
we really don't know.
But you're still sort of guessing.
Yeah.
Unless you're the person actually selling the game.
Yeah. So publishers, for whatever reason, rarely ever release PC sales figures.
Because they're not impressive.
They're probably low.
Yeah.
And I wonder too if Valve is like, just keep that to yourself.
Yeah. You never really see indie games will say like in numbers because hundreds of thousands are good when you're a game with a budget that low.
Yeah.
Or like they'll say like, oh, when we had this Steam sale, we sold X times as many as we normally do. Right? You rarely get hard numbers.
Yeah.
In that regard, I mean, it must work for somebody because otherwise they wouldn't do it. But I don't know. I think this is just the big players are took notice of the Epic Store, and there's here's Ubisoft sort of trying to get their feet wet.
Yep.
And we'll see if they do it again. That'll probably be the best indicator that it was successful.
Good point. Good point. If they do it again, it worked. If they don't, it didn't.
Yep.
And we'll probably know that in about 4 months' time.
Yep. Whatever their fall game is.
Yeah.
If that doesn't also they do that again, then I'm pretty safe saying the Division 2 was a successful experiment.
We will absolutely know. So there you go. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that's hard to talk about. So you're not going to see a lot of podcasts discussing this topic, and for good reason. There actually a couple did this week. I was pretty surprised by that. And that is what's going on with Randy Pitchford at Gearbox right now. So Randy has a spotty reputation at best during his tenure at Gearbox. We can go back all the way to the Aliens, Colonial Marines lawsuit and all the stuff that happened with that. If you work in the industry, you generally know a lot more about Randy than people who don't. And that's what's going to be tough for us today discussing this, because we talk to people and we hear a lot of stories and we know, well, maybe we don't know. We think we know a lot of stuff about Randy and Gearbox. Some of the stuff is hearsay, and we have to be very careful here because there is a lawsuit around all this. And just to kind of get you up to speed on what's going on if you're not a regular on Sifted, essentially what happened is Randy Pitchford has been the head of Gearbox. Gearbox, as you know, creates the Borderlands franchise. Gearbox was suing one of its old financial people, saying that he had basically embezzled money or misappropriated funds and used corporate credit cards for personal finances. That's what happened first.
That was months and months ago.
That was months ago. Mid to late December, he files a countersuit against Gearbox and Randy Pitchford, basically alleging that Randy had embezzled $12 million, although it wasn't really embezzling. Basically what he's saying is that the publisher of their game, Take-Two, gave him a $12 million executive bonus, but that money was misappropriated and was supposed to go to the team and spread out across the entire team at Gearbox. That's the business side of what this guy is accusing him of. Now there's a bunch of other personal stuff that he's also accused him of. And how do we say this?
Well, first we say it's hearsay.
It is hearsay.
Because you can say pretty much anything you want in a lawsuit like this.
Right.
And
depending on how you word it and the verbiage that you use.
The verbiage of this lawsuit, this document is filed, makes it clear that the guy suing them is saying that he heard about this. Like, it's not that he has firsthand knowledge of these things, but that this is what he was told.
The stuff we're about to talk about.
Yeah. The money thing is straight up. He's like, I know. He's saying, I know this happened.
Right. Yeah.
Allegedly.
And there have been other corroborators of that as well.
So basically, the overall thing is like, Gearbox and Randy said, this guy he misappropriated all these funds, and then the guy that they were accusing of came back and said, you want to talk about misappropriating funds?
Yeah.
Like, let's look at this. So it's kind of like they're both throwing giant misappropriated money figures at each other, and it's kind of going to be up to the courts to figure out which of them, if either, is true.
And in that filing, in the I guess you can call it a counter filing.
It's a countersuit.
There was a lot of personal stuff in there as well. One of the stories was that Randy had left a thumb drive at a restaurant, and the thumb drive had private and secure information for companies like Microsoft, Sony, Take-Two. And not only that, there was adult content also on the thumb drive. Corroborating that story is Randy himself, who went on a podcast many moons ago.
I think the day or 2 days after the original suit was filed, in fact.
Went on a podcast and basically corroborated all of it. He said that he had, in fact, went to Medieval Times, which is, for those of you who don't live in California, or I guess maybe it's a chain
Medieval Times everywhere.
Are there?
Yeah.
It's a place where you go to eat dinner, and there's like a medieval festival that takes place while you eat. And you eat with your hands, and it's like this whole throwback thing while performance art happens in front of you. So he goes to dinner with people from Gearbox, including the guy who eventually filed the countersuit.
Yeah, because they were apparently very good friends for a while.
Like
until
best
this
friends.
all went down.
Right. And he leaves a thumb drive there. And it does, in fact, have secret information from all these companies on it.
Which does happen.
Like,
that's how we found out about like 3 different Assassin's Creed games.
It's true. And it also did have adult content on the thumb drive.
Which he discussed on the podcast.
And kind of the rub with the adult content is in the countersuit, his ex-friend and colleague said that it was underaged porn. Randy claims that while it was on the fringe, that it was legal in that the actor or actors were 18 or older.
Right. The barely
maybe
legal
18,
thing.
probably 18.
Yeah.
So he essentially had pornography on the thumb drive that was, some would argue, a man of his age, probably a little tasteless to have, but technically not illegal. And it's interesting that this was thrown into the countersuit almost as like a character assassination ploy, because
because like it seems like the underage part is in quotes in the filing,
which allows the filing to be off the hook if it's inaccurate.
And it's couched as it's hearsay, so it's like, I don't know this for sure, but I heard someone say this, and maybe someone should look into it. But the whole point is you say stuff like that because you want people to sort of associate that with the person you're suing, so that even if there's no merit to it, people associate that with that person.
Yeah.
It's a not a nice thing to do when you're going after someone for that. But it happens a lot.
It does. It happens in pretty much every divorce filing.
Yeah, like you throw in stuff. It's like, okay, well this is not a thing. We can't act on this because hearsay is not admissible or whatever. But it's already in the filing. When you're doing it to someone who's a public figure, it can have harder consequences. But you can see even like in the reports about the lawsuit, like at least Kotaku did not put that part in the lead because it's hearsay and they didn't want that to be the story.
Right.
But of course, stories take a life of their own.
Well, it's still in the story.
Yeah.
And for the people who actually read the story, it doesn't matter whether it's in the lead
but you
or
don't
not.
Want that
it's still there.
You don't want that to be the whole story. Because
The
you put
crux
that in
of
the
your
headline, it's the only thing anyone's going to read.
Well, you want to make sure you have facts in your headline
Right.
instead of hearsay. So Kotaku actually handled the story very well.
Yeah, that was actually, a lot of like mainline news outlets would probably have not have resisted the temptation on that one.
Jason
so
Schreier,
credit
once
to
again,
Schreier on that.
Another
one.
great job by him. And then the other allegation was that Pitchford was having parties at a theater that were called peacock parties. And I think when you first hear that, it's pretty easy to kind of go to a salacious place. Mm-hmm. And then he actually went into detail saying that these parties were opportunities for adult men to expose themselves to minors.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't really believe that.
Well, if
like,
so, the peacock parties are real.
Yeah,
he has peacock parties,
but it's because he has a theater in his house that's called he calls it the Peacock Theater. He has a proscenium stage in his house because Randy's a magician.
And this is where, well, first of all, I saw I've seen other people reporting that they've been to those parties. Mm-hmm. I have not personally talked to people, but I've talked to people who know people who went to those parties, and they all say that they are completely benign and fine. It's actually Randy Pitchford, which a lot of people don't realize this, is a magician.
Yep.
And he does performances for the people that come to his parties in the Peacock Theater, thus the Peacock parties. And so ultimately,
he's actually a good magician.
He is. He's very good.
And he's the I believe the nephew of the great Cardini, who is, if you look him up, is a legendary magician of the 20th century.
Yeah. And so it appears, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, it appears that Randy's being honest. I mean, he admitted to what was on the thumb drive. He kind of had to because a kid found the thumb drive and took it home and looked at all the stuff on it. But he has not tried to deny anything. I mean, I guess he tried to deny the Peacock Party stuff by explaining what it really was.
Right.
And then other people, multiple people have corroborated that story.
The thing about, like, I mean, the fact that he has a stage in his house is not a secret. Like, everyone who's ever worked at Gearbox has told me that.
He's filthy. Here, let's start with this. He's filthy rich. Maybe he's filthy rich because he stole $12 million from Gearbox. We don't know, but he is filthy rich.
He's been well off for longer than when this alleges that happened.
Absolutely.
Mean, he's been running Gearbox since 1999. He's not he's a high profile,
he's not been making
well-paid
a pittance.
man.
Yeah. He lives in a small town in Texas outside of Dallas called
Frisco.
And according,
as a San Francisco native, I know that town because someone's like, "Hey, I'm from Frisco." I'm like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh no, Texas." I'm like, "Okay, yeah." You can't call San Francisco that.
And look, here is some hearsay on my part. This is not fact. This is legitimately hearsay. Things that I heard other people say. And that is that Randy basically runs that town. He, first of all, employs a ton of people. It's a small town. Everybody knows him. He has been involved in redevelopment projects in the downtown. So he's kind of in cahoots with the mayor of the town. So much so that if you go to Gearbox, his wife has a huge cafe in the bottom floor of their building that allegedly they pay no rent for. So there are ties in the community with Randy. He's helping the community. They're helping him. It's like a symbiotic relationship between Gearbox and the little town that they're in.
Yeah. Not an uncommon thing, really.
It's not uncommon at all. But that is what I've heard, is that there may be some protection going on in that small town because of the things that Randy and Gearbox has done for the town. And so no one's really 100% sure about any of the information that's coming out is legitimate or accurate or true. And by the looks of things, my guess is with this lawsuit, it probably never goes to court. There's going to be a settlement out of court. And that may have been the plan all along from this ex-employee / friend, is that...
Ex-friend.
Right.
Like.
That's what I said, ex-employee / friend. And he knows that if you put this salacious stuff in the countersuit, you're basically signaling, okay, this is what we're going to bring up in court. Which is basically a dog whistle to say, hey, let's not go to court, let's settle this out of court, which is what I think the ultimate goal is of the countersuit. I don't think we're ever going to get any more clarity on what's happened here.
It does feel like the strategy is from the guy who's representing himself, I might add.
Because he is a lawyer.
Yeah. But even if you're a lawyer,
that's not a good idea.
Probably you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But he is doing it. It really does feel to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do come from a family of legal stuff. It does feel like hey, let's settle this so we can make this go away sort of thing.
Yeah, for both of us.
Yes. We just can all be over if we just, just pony up some cash, sign this paper, and we all never talk about it again.
Yep. But to me, there's irreparable damage that's been done to Randy Pitchford. How do you come back from that?
I don't know. For one thing, I would say don't settle, fight it.
Yeah.
Take it to courts.
Get it out there
and do what you can. I mean, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
You can't. Not with the internet.
No.
And everybody jumps to judgment very quickly, and then that spreads across all the search engines and across YouTube, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's also a weird. To me, it's weird in the sense that okay, so if all these things he's alleging, not the money, but the personal stuff he's alleging.
Sordid stuff, yeah.
If you knew that, why did you wait until now to report about it? If you know that shit, why are you not on the horn to the cops right away?
Well, because before he was protecting a friend. Now that they're no longer friends.
Well, guess what? You still don't look good.
Yeah.
After I don't know if he thought through what that implication is.
Well, I think he was at a dead end. I mean, he wasn't going to get any money. Mm-hmm. He's being sued. He's probably going to end up having to pay a ton of money. He's backed into a corner. He's not rich like Randy. He's a lawyer. He's probably not poor, but he doesn't have Randy Pitchford money. Mm-hmm. I mean, what other course could he take at that point? It's like you're kind of backed into a corner and you don't really have any way out at that point. And if you don't want to go broke getting sued by a gigantic corporation the size of Take-Two.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
How does it play out for Randy, though? So
he's definitely not going to be on the Borderlands 3 press tour. I'm going to guess.
Is he not?
I don't think you want him out there for that. No.
So Take-Two and Gearbox have released countless replies and rebuttals to this. Like Gearbox's lawyer is like working overtime. Like he or she is literally replying to every little thing that the ex-employee states or writes in a complaint. It is like very granular how it is addressed each one of these things. But when you start thinking about the parent company, Take-Two, and I'm first of all shocked that Take-Two is letting Gearbox handle this. Usually by now,
Take-Two doesn't own them.
It doesn't.
No.
But it's related to one of its projects that was worked on. The $12 million payment came from Take-Two, so it's still wrapped up in the whole saga in a number of different ways. But for whatever reason, it is just step back and let the studio's lawyers.
Yeah, Take-Two is kind of doing my name's Paul and it's between y'all.
Yeah, I mean that might be what it is. It's like, look, we've been mentioned once in this already. That's one time too many.
You can keep the $12 million. We don't
just stop talking about
call us when Borderlands is done. We don't. We'll be over here. We'll be over here rolling in the Red Dead cash.
But the thing is if you don't send Randy out to represent Borderlands 3 and do all the press tours and all that kind of stuff, aren't you kind of admitting that something bad happened?
No, you're just controlling the narrative because you want the tour to be about Borderlands 3 and not endless game journalists asking him about the allegations.
Yeah, that would never happen anyway, by the way.
Well,
never happen.
Depends where you go.
If I were there, it would have happened. But the way most journalists go and do these junkets, they don't ask questions.
Yeah,
like
I suppose, but there's going to be it's like, well, you just skip Kotaku and.
But see, Jason Schreier doesn't go to that stuff.
He would for that.
No. They'd probably still send the person who has to do the actual work around covering the game. Or they send both. I
think you get both. And then you're at the point where it's like, well, are we denying interviews with the people we know are going to ask real questions? Or I mean, like.
Well, yeah, they will.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been doing that for decades.
But it's simpler from a PR point of view. You just don't send him. You send other people. You send the creative director and some of the voice people and the guy who does Claptrap. And
it's so obvious, though, what's going on then.
So?
Does that make it worse? Because they're going to write a story then they're going to write stories that Randy Pitchford is no longer pitching the studio's games. I mean, either way, you're going to have a bad story written about you.
Yeah, but at least it doesn't get more traction, and Randy doesn't accidentally say something that everybody sound bites for 20 fucking minutes.
That's a good point.
And yeah. Automatically, if you keep him out of the spotlight, what the damage will be. If you put him in the spotlight,
not with Randy, you don't though.
If you put him in the spotlight, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, he's always been a loose cannon.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just always
he's
been
a maverick.
He is. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what he prefers to be called, particularly since he lives in Texas.
And that's one of the reasons they would always bring him out for stuff like this normally, because he's entertaining.
He's also very nice.
Yes.
Like, if you meet him, he's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yes, I've talked to him several times about tons of different things.
It's been very hard for me to rationalize this in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I've hung out with his wife at E3
yeah,
several times. They're very nice people.
If you know him, you know her, because she's always with him tagging along. So it's very interesting when you know somebody, at least you think you know them personally. Obviously, I didn't. And you hear this stuff about them because you start doing that. It's almost like you go through the different stages of grief. You go through like the denial stage, and then you go through like the reasoning stage where you try to explain it away, and then finally you get to the acceptance stage. And my acceptance stage is, I believe he probably took the $12 million. I mean,
we'll find out.
We probably will, but I've kind of accepted at this point that probably is what happened. There's been a lot of people corroborating that story already. So I'm pretty confident in accepting that. The rest of the stuff, look, I'm not going to judge someone's taste in porn. As long as it's not illegal and the people aren't underaged, do I have a right to judge somebody on that? No, I don't think I do. So I'm not going to...
Maybe you don't keep it on the same thumb drive as your official documents that you leave in medieval times.
Yeah, that has all the information for the next, 3 Borderlands games and, all the deals you've cracked with all the major publishers involved. Yeah. Look, he made a huge mistake. Could you imagine how he felt the moment he realized that flash drive was gone?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. We all get that.
The porn would not be the first thing I was concerned about in that situation.
It wouldn't be either. Well, particularly if you know that it's not illegal and that the people are of age.
If he was talking about it on a podcast next, I feel like it's probably not.
That moment, though, when you realize that it's like that everyone's had that moment. They're like, oh, I lost my keys. And you've had that moment where that heat wave comes over you and your heart kind of jumps. Imagine what he felt that moment.
I felt that when I've accidentally left, like, press kits places. Right, let alone, it was like, it's like, oh, no, they'll find out how many players it is.
Yeah, it's just imagine him.
Yeah.
All that documentation. How fast did he drive back there? You know, it was all locked up, and he's like beating on the door, like, I know there's someone in there. Let me in. Like, and then he didn't get it. And I guess the next day, he probably just was like, well, I'm going to talk about it now to make myself feel better. So that's what I'm going to do. But this is probably the most salacious story I remember from all my time covering the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean,
the prostitutes at E3, that was a big one.
That was a thing. I don't know if salacious probably doesn't really apply, but the God of War 2 press event in Europe where they sacrificed a goat. You remember that one?
No, I don't remember that.
That was in Greece. I think that was literally actually in Greece, and it was a big like pagan whatever, and they actually sacrificed a goat, but like the goat was actually pre-bought for like whatever, and I don't know if they actually I don't think they actually killed it there, but it was like they had like a roast goat that was supposed to be like a sacrifice. It was like it was some scandal around it.
Well, I remember for Shadow Man,
most of the people we know didn't go to that because it was a Sony Europe thing.
Yeah,
so nobody's flying out to the goat event.
Well, I think also in Europe there was a Shadow Man thing or something Acclaim did where they they basically put people's tombstones in like a graveyard or something.
That was here. That was a thing where you could like rent out your tombstone or something to like show Shadow Man. And then there was the thing where that's not salacious, or it's just sort of tasteless.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think this is the most salacious thing that has happened in the games industry.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, not a lot of sex scandals, really. I mean,
nope.
There's a lot of harassment.
Yeah.
But not like this sort of like, they're not things that you would expect to see on like next season's Law and Order.
We don't get to see behind the curtain very often to find out what your favorite developer is really like. Mm-hmm. I'm sure all our favorite developers, if we found out what they're really like, there are things that we probably wouldn't be too enthused about. But he was just laid bare, basically.
But also, I don't have any inside information on this. But like, it would shock me to find out that the allegations about the porn stuff was true.
Yeah.
That doesn't strike me as someone. I don't know Randy particularly well, but like, he never came off as creepy or skeezy like that.
He didn't until I heard him describe what was actually in the porn that was on the thumb drive. Like, the way he described it and the verbiage that he used made me believe that this isn't his homeboy's first rodeo. Like, this is like a thing for him, porn.
Okay.
And whether it's illegal porn or not, it's like, you're saying like I can kind of imagine something.
I'm talking about the allegation that he has underage porn on that drive. I'm sure there was porn on it because he talked about it.
Right.
But in terms of being illegal, that would he doesn't seem like a pedophile.
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. I'm not willing to say that I don't believe or I do believe that. I just don't feel like I have enough information. We don't have any information other than what he said and what was in the
we literally don't have any information. And like the countersuit hearsay alleged thing from guy who is already being sued by them, I don't consider that information yet.
Yeah.
It's not information. It's just something a guy said.
Right. That's what I said.
That's
what I just said. We don't have any information.
So it's unfortunate that like he seems to be getting crucified already for the implications of that. But like, if there is something behind it, I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it. But until then, I'm not going to really.
I don't think they will get to the bottom of it because the thumb drive's gone.
Well, yeah, but if you're accused of something like that, usually the police are going to dig into you for it.
Yeah, it's possible. But I think no matter what, this is bad for Borderlands. This is bad for Gearbox.
Not the start I'd hope for, no.
Do you think it affects the interest or the sales of Borderlands 3 at all?
No.
Yeah, me either.
I mean, frankly,
if the game is good, people are going to buy it and play.
Well, also,
line.
frankly, I don't think most people are going to hear about this.
Yeah.
Like the mainstream audience is never going to know this happened.
I'm guessing there are people who are watching GameFace that don't even know that this was going on until we started talking about it. And again, it's one of those stories that you're not going to see a lot of podcasts talking about. I was pleasantly surprised that a couple did this week. But typically, you talk about like IGN's podcast. Think they're going to talk about this? Probably not. They're not allowed to swear on podcasts on IGN. They're not.
Yeah.
I mean, and for their audience, it makes sense. You need to keep it clean. But so you're right. This story is not going to get disseminated out to everybody. And it's only been reported once. Like Kotaku reported it, and then a bunch of YouTubers did their thing with it.
But there's nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, until there's more information, or ultimately what I believe is going to happen is they just settle out of court.
The settlement happens and
we won't know any of the details of that. We'll just know that they settled, and off we go.
Mm-hmm. Unless there's another countersuit for defamation of character.
Which is possible.
Which I would say there's grounds for.
And, because will I ever look at him the same? I won't.
I mean, ideally, you're protected from the accusations you make, especially through hearsay, in a lawsuit like that. But because of the far-reaching social consequences of what that guy's saying, you could theoretically try to come back on him with it.
I mean, I won't look at Randy I hate to say it, but I won't look at him the same again.
Because of the money?
All of it. Just the whole story. It's just like, I just feel like I got a good idea of his character from all of this, not just one thing. It's the accumulative effect, and you start going back to some of the stuff that's happened with him in the past that I kind of let slip and say, oh, that's just aliens, fanboys being angry, and like I always found a way to let him off the hook.
That game was bad.
It was awful. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
Did you see that thing last?
I'm not saying that the fans were wrong, that it was a great game, but I'm just saying, like, I always just like I had to deal with fanboys for the last 20 years. I get it. Like, I know that they can be insane. And so I always just kind of like, oh, it's just fanboys being fanboys. But with this, I can't really do that. I can't really let him off the hook. Like, it appears that he stole $12 million from from his employees who were supposed to get money, who were busting their butts working on these games for 2-3 years on like 80-hour weeks. Like, to me, I'm not saying that I think he's like a pervert or he's a pedophile or anything like that. I'm just saying that my overall opinion of his character is different than it was before this stuff happened, and not in a good way.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more cynical when it comes to people who run companies.
You think they're all terrible, like politicians?
Sorta, a little bit. And like, I'm not saying like that makes me think of them as bad, but like it's sort of the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, beyond that, I'm gonna have to wait and see where this case goes, if it goes anywhere. I think you're right. There's a good chance it settles and was just never talked about again as part of the settlement.
Because neither one of these sides want this to get dragged through the press again.
Maybe, or unless Randy does. You know,
Randy, well, you're right, because he is kind of fighting for his name right now.
Yeah, I mean, if I were him, I would probably.
Would you?
I would think very seriously about taking it to trial.
What would you do?
I would, as at least part of the settlement, I would demand like a public retraction of the non-monetary accusations.
Yep. Me too. And if he refused to do that, then I would probably fight. I would fight it.
You move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have the wherewithal to do it.
Yeah. So I mean that doesn't even. That doesn't even get into the question of like, what do you do if you know that you did take the money?
Yeah.
Because I don't know one way or the other. Again, this is just two sides throwing accusations at each other in court, and we may never know the truth of it.
We probably won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there you go. What happens with Borderlands 3 now? You think we just never see Randy Pitchford again? Like when they show it at E3 for the first time, like he's not going to be there to do interviews.
Probably not, but I mean, it's not. I don't think he'll disappear forever. I mean, there'll probably be a time to have him come back on stage one day.
What is the grace period on something like that?
I don't know. Like, what would be Borderlands next? What would be Gearbox's next game after Borderlands 3?
It'd probably be 3 or 4 years from now. So yeah, that probably would be enough time.
Yeah.
Well, I think after this, Randy will probably be more than happy to lay low for a little while. Or maybe not.
I don't know.
His personality, actually, maybe not.
Yeah, he's a big personality, and he's and also like if he comes out of this feeling vindicated, like
He may come back harder than before.
He would have no reason to go low.
It's true. That's a good point.
To go low profile, rather, not to go low. That sounds like he was just going to be he's going to be a dick forever. I don't think that's going to happen.
So yeah, I'm guessing we get more on this pretty soon because I don't think either one of these sides wants this to drag on for a really long time.
No, and I wonder, like even the countersuit. I wonder if that guy thought it would get the attention even it's gotten so far.
He probably thought no one would even see it. Yeah. I mean, Schreier was doing digging. Like, he dug through, like, legal filings and found it. So it wasn't like they sent out a press release to all the journalists.
Like, hey!
It's like PR. It's like,
alert Kotaku. It's the suit's coming in.
Yeah, that's not happening. So, yeah, he did some digging and dug it up. So, yeah, I think he's definitely surprised at what's going on right now.
Yeah, so this is probably already higher profile than he
ever dreamed it would be. Because he's getting dragged through the mud, too, now. So... yeah, I mean, obviously they filed a suit against him a long time ago, but it was kind of one of those things that was reported one day and forgotten the next. So him counterfiling just drags it all through the mud again, and now his name is getting dragged through the mud again. So, yeah, I think both sides just want this to go away as quickly as possible. Randy may have to make some reparations for the money if it turns out that they investigate and they find out that, in fact, he did take money illegally. But you know what? If Take-Two gave him a check for $12 million and said, this is for you, he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what is not illegal when it comes to that kind of money.
It's a bonus, so I don't know.
I mean, you could end up in an ethical problem, but that would kind of be between.
You could have all your staffers quit.
Yeah,
and your studio could go down the toilet.
But in terms of that, it would probably be between the founder or the owners of the company is usually the question there.
Yep.
I don't remember who co-owns that with him or whatever. Because I know he's not the only founder, but I don't remember anyone except him. So yeah, I don't know. Like there's a 100 different ways this could go.
Yeah.
And
I think we'll get one final story that is just settled. We don't know any of the details about it unless we see the person who countersued going and retracting the stuff that was in there.
Yeah. I mean, I would.
But I think that's the only resolution we'll get.
That would be top of my list in that situation.
If you were Randy,
yeah, it would be like,
you have to clear my name.
Yeah, you have to say that was not a thing that happened.
Yeah, it was something I heard, but as it turns out, it was not true.
Yeah,
something along those lines. But anyway,
which actually can be a tough ask because things like I heard that gets you off the hook for a lot of stuff.
It does, absolutely. Semantics matter when you're talking about the law, big time. And look, if this is all lies, I feel really bad for Randy. Yeah. Really bad. That would really, really suck if someone just randomly got mad at you and accused you of something you didn't do. I mean, look, people write false stuff about me on the internet all the time. But it's nothing like this, and it's nothing that would make my family question my integrity. When you start talking about stuff like this, that's where it really, really gets dirty. So I hope that if it is not true, that Randy does vindicate himself. And I honestly hope it's not true because I like Randy. I think every time I've hung out with him, he's been a great guy. So I hope if it's not true, he gets vindicated, and I hope ultimately it is not true. But we shall see. So let's move on. We're going to move to our next and last topic of this week's GameFace, and we're going to discuss Resident Evil 2. We talked about it a little bit during the Sifted Video Game Fantasy Draft. Because I drafted it first overall for me, second overall in the entire draft. But what are they calling it? The one-shot demo?
Yes, one-shot demo.
One-shot demo has been on PS4 and Xbox One for the last several days.
And PC.
And PC as well?
It's also on PC.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. It is, and true to its name, you have one shot at it. And you basically have a 30-minute timer that you can use to play. People have found workarounds. For instance, if you own a PS4 and you have multiple accounts on your PS4, you can play it on one account and then flip over to another account and then play it on that account. And conceivably, you could keep creating accounts to play it as much as you want to. That seems to be the easiest way to play it more than once. There are some other things going on, I think in the PC version where people can go in and mess with their internal clock or whatever. A lot of the other ways have been probably not worth it. But the way it is set up now is you have 30 minutes, and as far as you can get into the demo is as far as you can go. Now, I will say this. I watched a speed run of this demo, and they finished the entire thing in 1 minute and 57 seconds. So, conceivably, you can very easily make it through this entire thing. I played the game straight. In that speed run, the gentleman who was playing it just ran past everything, which brings its own set of concerns, in all honesty, that we'll talk about in a little bit. But
have you ever played Resident Evil before?
Well, yeah, I've played them all.
Because that's how you speedrun Resident Evil.
Oh, well, I've never tried to speedrun Resident Evil.
Just because the speedrunners are doing it does not mean that's how you're going to be playing the game, I promise. Like, you can run through everything in every Resident Evil game without touching anything. Like, that's standard stuff.
Now, there have been games where I've been able to do that. Yeah. Not Resident Evil, but just other games where I can just run past the enemies. And that's a flaw. That's a problem.
It's not a flaw. It's how you play the game. Like, Code Veronica, you cannot get through that game without running past a bunch of zombies because there's literally not enough ammo.
No, I'm not talking about Resident Evil. I'm talking about other games where I've been able to do this. And it absolutely is like the sign of a broken game, when you can just run past the enemies and their pathfinding or their AI isn't smart enough to keep following you.
Well, they're zombies. I mean, they're not supposed to be smart. I bet you can't do that to the lickers.
I don't know.
Because I didn't get to a licker.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I was hoping to get to a licker.
All I saw were cops eating cops.
Right.
And eating me.
But the zombies in Resident Evil have always been like that.
Yeah, they're brain dead or whatever.
They're a little more aware in this one. They'll come after you in the next room, which, that was not a thing you could do when you had to load between each door,
Yeah, that's a good point. So you've played it as well.
Yeah.
What are your impressions, Matt, of Resident Evil 2, the remake?
I like it.
Yeah?
It's like a Resident Evil 4, but Resident Evil 2.
But in a police station.
Yeah. In the weirdest police station ever built.
It is a very weird police station. It's like, how could you go to work every day in this building and not be like, I quit?
Oh, I forgot my medallions with lions and eagles on them, so now I can't go to the bathroom. Yeah.
Now, I know what you're seeing right now. You're like, oh my gosh, I've seen this a million times. But this is really the very first part of the demo, and it is very similar to what they've shown a bunch. But eventually, it allows you to open up an entirely new door and go to an entire new section of the police department and experience tons of brand new content. The first thing I would say is when I watched this demo being played by others over the last several months, and in all honesty, when I played it at E3, it was much slower. I don't know if they're nearing finishing the game at this point, so maybe like the enemy placement is final now.
They better be finished.
But there are enemies everywhere. Like, I constantly was in combat with zombies. Like, no,
they definitely pop up. It popped up a lot. I did notice, there's like boards you can find that you can cover
up windows to keep more of them from coming in. Yeah.
It takes 3 good shots to the brain.
You say 3, I say 6.
No, I did it every single one I ran into. And
you'll see in this footage. I think there's one zombie I literally shot in the head 8 times. 8 times.
I never ran into one that didn't go down with 3. And although sometimes, because it's hard to tell when they're dead, and a couple times I've shot them in 3 and they fell down, and I walked over to them and kind of, you can't kick them, but you kind of walk up and be like, and sometimes they'll grab you if you haven't killed them.
Yeah, I can't tell when they're dead at all.
But
I've thought they were dead. I've walked out of a room, come back in the room, the body's still laying there, and when I walk by the body, it grabs me by the leg.
Yeah, well, this
is so gross, by the way. They're pulling your guts out.
There's a section where where I finally kind of figured out, 3 to the head and they fall over, and so I can get past them. So 3 to the head, this one guy, and I went into a room. There's another zombie in there. 3 to the head, he's down, and then I start seeing, and I go back out the side, the room, and the guy I'd shot before has gotten up again. And I'm like, well, I thought I killed you. So I shot him again. One more shot to the head, and he finally, the head kind of exploded, and he fell over.
So you can just watch there. I shot him 3 times in the head. He goes down to the ground. I go to the next room, and he comes back after me.
And then the
4, 5. I don't know where you're getting 3, dude. Every zombie I killed took at least 5 shots.
I'm getting 3 because every single zombie I shot went down in 3. And then sometimes when I leave the room, so like after I'd shot the guy again, suddenly the doors to the room I just left, which has no other entrance, start rattling. I'm like, okay, well, where is that guy coming from? Because I killed the only zombie there. And the same zombie comes out with all the same bullet wounds in his head, and I shoot him again, and his jaw flies off, and he falls over dead again. So 3 was the magic number to make them go down so I could get away, but sometimes they get back up.
They get back up, yeah, absolutely. And I like that. Like, it's like you don't know, like...
Also, the detail in the damage
gore.
on the bodies.
Yeah.
Where you shoot them matters will cause different kinds of, like shooting them in the top of the head brings them down faster than shooting them just in the face or in the jaw, because you got to aim for the brain. But shooting them in the jaw will cause jaw damage, and it'll hang or blow the jaw away. And then like when you get the shotgun, you're causing even more massive damage to them.
I never even found the damn shotgun.
It's incredible.
I got the shells. I never got the shotgun. But the gore in this is off the freaking charts. It's like the best ever. Mm-hmm. It's the most realistic gore I've ever seen in a video.
Mortal Kombat 11 has its work cut out.
It really does.
I didn't think I'd be saying that.
Yeah, because the last MK was the goriest game I had ever seen before I played this one. It is... I don't know if you guys saw, but that one shot and I got overwhelmed by zombies in this game. I got tackled by 2 of them or 3 of them, and as always with Resident Evil, they have these very grotesque death scenes. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but earlier, the one death scene, the zombies are pulling Leon's guts out and eating them. So yeah, it has all the stuff that have made the modern Resident Evils great. I think maybe the one thing I would say is that it is very similar to what we've been playing since Resident Evil 4, and with Leon to boot.
Sort of. I mean, you're not punching any boulders or...
Yet.
I mean, I played Resident Evil 2 before. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. I'm not making that assumption yet.
I'm going to go ahead and make that assumption because it's Resident Evil 2. It's not... that doesn't happen. I
don't think that this game is just a one-for-one recreation, though, of Resident Evil 2. I think they take liberties with it a lot.
Here and there, but I recognize individual rooms and corners and staircases, and this scene. I mean, this scene is not the same. I mean, originally you just find him kind of sitting on the ground, but the beats are the same.
Yeah.
The puzzles aren't the same, but the beats are the same as sort of the general play. I don't think you're going to go completely off the rails and suddenly you're running through the bowels of hell, punching fire boulders, and that's only Chris Redfield can do that. Leon's a rookie.
In this, he is, and it is survival horror. So your ammo is limited. I ran out of ammo several times. In fact, I ran out of ammo and I broke my knife and had no way to fight zombies at all. No way. And then I started running past them, trying to find rooms to find more ammo.
Interesting.
Because your knife dulls and breaks
if
you use it too much. And I'd ran out of ammo and I'd used it a ton and I broke my knife and I had nothing.
I found plenty of ammo. I was surprised.
It's like I said, I'm using 6 or 7 shots to the head every time they drop a zombie.
Well, you gotta wait you gotta aim. You gotta wait. You can't move. That's the other thing. Is you can move while you're aiming in this, but you're much more accurate if you stand still, which is hard.
Here's some other really good
Which is hard because your instinct is to move away and keep them at a distance so you can aim better, but then you're going to your bullets will go wide of where you're aiming. So I taught myself to stand very still and just shot.
Look, Matt, are you really trying to tell me how to play Resident Evil?
Yeah, because apparently you're not doing it right.
Really?
I just went. You were sitting right here. I went through it. I mean, you can laugh all you want, but it was 3 shots to the head.
I have the footage right here. You can watch it. You can tell whether I'm shooting him in the head or not. I mean, I can't fabricate footage. This is me playing the game. You can watch me shoot him in the head 8 times. And they keep coming.
It was every single zombie 3 shots.
Well, good for you, because it didn't work that way for me, and I ended up out of ammo.
And the demo didn't end because the time ran out. I had 4 minutes left, but the internet dropped, and apparently it won't let you play if you're not the demo if you're not connected. I assume to keep the time limit honest. But I had 20.
So right there was 3 shots right there before he even fell into the window. Now he's up.
I didn't see it.
Rewind it, Sam. The beauty of the TriCaster. All right, start there. This is really creepy too, by the way.
That looks really good.
1, 2.
Okay, that was a
now wait.
That was a Josh shot.
3. So doesn't even phase him. Doesn't even phase him. Gets right back up.
That was 2.
Oh, come on.
The second shot was in his jaw. You have to hit the brain. That is how detailed this shit is.
The other thing, too, is when you struggle with an enemy, you can use your knife to stab them, but when they go down, you have to retrieve the knife. It stays, in their body, so you don't actually keep it.
I thought that was pretty cool. And then 3.
Not dead.
Still there, but that was a
that's
Josh
what I'm
shot.
saying, dude.
Again, it was a Josh shot. You got to hit the brain. You got to hit the brain.
It's bullshit. Anyway,
bullshit.
They're bullet sponges. They take way too many bullets.
They take 3. When you play it,
still going.
When you play it, you'll see. When you play the whole game, you'll see.
Okay. Anyway.
And the other thing is, so I don't know how much you found, because I used the knife like once.
No, I used it a ton. I ran out of ammo.
I saw there was a.
I just sliced that guy to bits.
I see there was a bar on it. Like,
yeah, it wears out pretty fast.
There must be a way to sharpen it. That was pretty good on the ammo. The other thing, I ran out of inventory real fast, but I did find 2 hip packs that added 2 more slots each.
Oh, really?
So clearly there's...
I found tons of stuff. I found a green herb. I found 2 red herbs. I found first aid spray and a toilet. I found the map to the first floor. I found a key to a gun locker, which I never used. I found another, I think it was a spade key that I never used. I ran out of time eventually. Like, once I got up to the very top of the police station, I went into the second room and I ran out of time.
I wasted too much time looking around.
Yeah.
I was too interested in
stuff. What's so weird that they setting this up this way, I think, was just dumb, because it's like you're basically forcing people to run through a game where they're supposed to get absorbed in the atmosphere. It's weird. I feel like it's Capcom just saying, well, we don't want to give them too much because then maybe they won't buy the game. It's like, no. It's like, you let me soak in this atmosphere, I'm absolutely going to buy the game.
Yeah, and also, Resident Evil 2 is a very long game.
It is a big game. Yep.
It's not a pushover. And
if I remember, it took me 24 hours or something.
Well, because you have to play both characters.
Right.
You went through both discs. It just depended which one you picked first. And there was, slight differences with each one. I always picked Leon first.
In this, you have no choice. You have to play as Leon in the demo.
I'm sure there'll be a choice in the final game. But no, I think you could have just made this sort of the police station section of this, and as soon as you solve the main puzzle in the main area, the demo ends, and that's it. I mean, I don't know.
It's weird.
It's an odd choice.
But I still have enjoyed the crap out of this.
It's not going to stop anyone from buying it.
Well, the proof is in the pudding is that I'm pissed off that I can't keep playing it, I guess. So ultimately it works.
You could always download it on another platform.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can download it on another platform, or if you have a PS4 and you have a Japanese account and a European account, you can play it 2 more times. But
so how do you feel about your first pick? Now that you've played
pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I still don't think it's going to score a 9.5 or anything like that. I still think it's going to get a high 8. But I don't think many games are going to score much higher than that.
I think you might be surprised. This is a nice first impression.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. When it ended, I was like, no. And it's I don't actually. I finally got a PS4 Pro for Christmas, and I have not gone back and recreated my Japanese and European accounts like I had in my old one. So maybe I'll do that. This is probably worth it. But I also just got Ace Combat 7 for review. I'm sorry, Matt. So I need to kind of start playing that. So maybe I won't go back. But I after playing this, I feel very good about my pick. Not because I think it's going to score a 9.5 to a 10, but because I think it's going to be one of the best games this year. And that may end up just being a high 8 in 2019, depending on what happens with all those Sony first-party games. Yeah. But I'm totally happy with taking it second overall. I'm cool with that at this point. So it's a ton of fun. It only lasts 30 minutes. It's low commitment. Probably took me 20 minutes to download it, something like that. Highly recommend you go download this. Whatever platform you have, PC, Xbox One, PS4, it's out there.
Yeah, it's plenty of time to decide whether you're into it or not.
Yeah,
it's just,
you'll figure out real quick. If you're into it, you want more. I think after you have your second altercation, you'll be all in, and you'll go put your money down for a pre-order or just get ready to buy it when it comes out. And it comes out the 25th, I believe.
Maybe?
I think that's the release date.
I don't remember.
It's soon. It's coming real quick. So not much longer to wait as well. So get yourself a taste the first 30 minutes of the game.
Is that another Friday?
That's actually not the first 30 minutes, because the beginning of RE2, you have to make your way.
Yeah, you're in the city, and that's probably the second 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, something like that. So nice little cross-section of the game. You do get a chance. I mean, I didn't get to mess with the shotgun, but you said you got it.
Yeah.
And I've seen footage of people getting a shotgun, and holy cow.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow. That thing is a gore bringer.
Yep.
I saw some clips of that shotgun that I was just shocked. I am jaded. I mean,
the damage models, I really hope they do some featurettes or something on like
Yeah.
how that all the damage.
And they were
works
good
and all
about that after RE7 came out. So I have a feeling that they probably will. They went back and kind of did like that crazy long series long after it was out. So I have a feeling Capcom will release something like that once it's out there. But two thumbs up from you?
Yeah.
Two thumbs up right here. I think if you guys are been sitting on the fence wondering, I think you can go.
This will probably be my one horror game for the year. Cause I don't care about horror games, but
and I do.
I do care about this one because
and
it's
I
fun.
am really excited for this game. So not long to wait.
That's my problem with horror games most of the time is I just don't think they're very fun.
Yeah. Well, they're not really.
Yeah. And I think this is because I don't think they're scary usually.
Yeah.
Ever. And so like to me it's just like okay, well I don't like when I'm playing and I'm bored. So that. But like I really enjoyed playing this. Like the gameplay on this I think really is good.
Did you find the actual monster closet in the demo?
I don't think so.
So there's a locker that you open, and there's a freaking zombie inside the locker.
Oh, I opened a locker and a body felt, but it didn't move.
Oh, there's one that you've opened up where the guy does move.
Huh.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like we make fun of monster closets. It's almost like Capcom was like, "Oh, we'll give you a monster closet."
I did like the room I found the shotgun in has a bunch of like lockers that open through a digital code. And like every locker is like code like 2 something, 203, 204. It's like that's the block of lockers you're in. And you go to the pad and the 2 button is missing. And I'm just like,
you dirty
Resident Evil. Like,
you have to find that.
You have to find a freaking key.
Thing.
And of course there's a note next to it. This is like, the pad's broken. Someone better go find another key. It's like, oh, you.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't get too far into that stuff. Like, that is one thing I think they could dial back a little bit from the original RE2.
And you know that key is going to take up the same inventory space as the shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
And
already I've been doing the inventory management stuff. Like, I filled up my inventory already. Like, I didn't get 2 extra slots like you did. So already I got to a point where I was like, well, I guess I need to combine this red and this green herb into one so I can fit this extra like shotgun shells for the shotgun I don't have yet. Like I'm already doing that like mental gymnastics with my inventory. So pretty much all Resident Evil elements present and accounted for.
Yeah, just it doesn't have the the slots are uniform. So
Yeah.
you don't have the thing where you have to sort of play Tetris with your bazooka.
Not yet. I have a feeling you might though, because you start getting bigger guns. You know you're going to get a gun that takes up 2. Did
Maybe.
the shotgun take up
No,
multiple?
shotgun took up 1.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a big
And
deal.
I did not run into a point because I kept, you can pick up ammo and it lets you combine it with the ammo that's already in your inventory.
Yeah.
I did not hit a point where my ammo had a max, even though I got into like the high 20s at one point of pistol bullets.
It's good.
So
It's encouraging.
I felt like I was properly equipped to deal with what was thrown at me. I'm sure that will change once the more interesting monsters show up.
Yep, absolutely. So
But I was like, I had to convince myself to use the shotgun. I was like, because normally I'm like, I gotta save the shotgun.
Yeah, I gotta
'cause
save
the
it for
liquors are coming.
liquors or whatever
And I'm
else.
like, nah, I should just see what
Only
it does.
the big
Like, boom,
boys, yeah.
it's
Well, in
good.
this demo, you got 30 minutes, so just let
Yeah.
it fly. Yeah. So there you go. That's the RE2 demo. We highly recommend you go download it and play it. Turn the lights out, put some cans on, and you will lose it just like I did.
Yeah, tons of audio options.
Oh, yeah. And the audio sounds
yeah,
amazing.
It's really good.
Like, you can totally tell. Like, the one thing I will say is, we were talking about how zombies go down, and then you're surprised when they get back up. Well, if you listen, there are audio cues that'll tell you that zombie isn't completely finished off yet.
Yeah, they're not quiet.
Yeah. So there you go. Not much longer to wait for the full
thing. A lot of bubbling gases and stuff.
Yeah,
in
lots of
the
gurgling
corpses.
and the sound of the sound design is great. The whole thing is pretty awesome. So go download it if you haven't already. I think you're gonna love it. Which brings us to our trailer of the week. Now, generally the year starts off pretty slow for trailers, but so many big games are coming in the next few months that really the media circus has just continued on. And so the trailer of the week this week is for actually a big game. In fact, it's a game that Matt drafted in his draft. I think you took it 4th?
5th or something. I think
something like
5th.
that. And that game is Metro Exodus. Now, Metro games in general, the stories have always been pretty good because they are kind of based on a series of novels, right?
Yeah, loosely.
Loosely.
Like, it's not like a one-to-one thing, but yeah, they're based on in the same way that kind of like Witcher is.
Yeah.
Like, they take the characters and they kind of do. They take the characters, they take
And
the
they
world.
take some liberties.
They take some liberties.
They take some characters and they take some liberties, which is the case with Metro. But
the first one is a more direct thing, but like the sequels have not been direct adaptations of the sequel books.
Right. And Metro games, they've never really pushed the narrative all that much, but that appears to be changing with Metro Exodus as they have put out a separate story trailer. Let's roll it.
The sun on my face. Fresh air in my lungs. the grass beneath my feet. I'd heard of such things, yet I lived in a world without them. An underground world. I have no recollection of life before the blast.
There's only Metro, nothing else.
Just a girl when the bombs fell.
You were right all along. It's not just Russia out there. It's the whole world.
Could such things exist again? I live in hope.
So let your hands slay the enemy's servants with no rest or mercy.
See the people I have to work with here. Complete and utter degradation. We are the government you people deserve.
I'll drown you in your own blood!
So you do understand. There is no other way. Man is a beast. A beast!
Who are those people trying to kill us?
It's the strongest who survives.
But don't you see what you're doing to my daughter? Your wife?
You're not saving anyone!
I live in hope. But the future is still all I fear.
So already that's more pros than I think I've gotten out of the other Metro games combined. So
Well, they had some stuff. I mean, they're at least they focus on the same characters moving forward through the story.
Yeah.
You're also, I can't remember the guy's name. It's not Alexios. It's some Russian name. I can never remember.
Vladimir.
No, it's like it's Alexi. I don't know, but it's the same guy. He's been your player character all three games.
Yeah.
And but the games are known somewhat, especially the second one, known for like more the world building and the story to some degree.
Yep.
Not just shooting demons in the face and Nazis and communists.
Mostly communists.
A lot of commies. Yeah, the Red Army is sort of the main antagonist.
Yeah.
I would say. But there's demons and Nazis and with the Polish guys and those guys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not a huge Metro fan, but like. Just because it's it was a survival thing, but the remasters actually added an option to play it in Spartan mode, which is like less survival stuff and just more run and gun, and more forgiving stealth, which I thought was made it much better for me. So yeah, I'm into it.
I saw some of you guys subscribe through Twitch Prime while the show was going on. I'm scrolling back up right now trying to find everyone who did that, but it appears that the chat has been cut off. And I can't get to it. So anyone who has subscribed through Twitch Prime, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Those of you may be ready to re-up as well now that we're in the new year. But let's get to some questions. Matt, do you have one? I'm scrolling all around.
W. Matthew, what do you think will be the biggest game sales-wise of 2019?
He says, my guess is Pokemon.
That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best guess. I think
it comes out this year, yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what comes out. Like, if, even The Last of Us Part 2, I don't think can outsell Pokemon.
No.
But, I mean, again, another part of it is what's the install base of Switch at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to sell 1-to-1. That's just not going to happen.
But you might sell 1 to 2.
It might be it's 50, 75% penetration of the user base.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not out of the question. And Last of Us 2. I mean, Last of Us sold very well, but Pokemon well.
I mean, honestly,
especially because you can combine the two versions of the Pokemon game, which is sort of cheating. But most people only buy one.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's probably going to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4.
I don't know. Maybe.
It'll be a close battle between that and Pokemon.
Has anyone said how much the last one did it?
No, they haven't announced anything. I mean, typically Call of Duty 15 to 20 million. Mm-hmm. And also, W. Matthew, we don't know if you're saying what will sell most by December 31st or what ultimately will sell the most. And that's a big difference because Call of Duty gets all its sales literally in 6 months, and then another one comes out. This Pokemon game is going to have legs for a while. The Last of Us Part 2 is going to have legs for a while. Who knows what happened with Death Stranding? I mean, if it even comes out, like, how's it going to sell? It's so weird. It's like
Death Stranding is not going to sell Pokemon.
No, definitely not. Trying to think of any other properties that even have a chance.
At the top shot?
No. Just Call of Duty. Really, that's the only game that could really top
COD
it.
and Pokemon.
Yeah.
No Rockstar game. There's no Assassin's Creed.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, it's going to be a big year for Switch, I think. Next. J. Reed Vic 7. Why hasn't there ever been a major controversy surrounding Activision or Call of Duty? Akin to what EA gets all the time, given that they've been the center of microtransactions. I can just stop your question right there. Because one is successful and one isn't.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about in reference to games that we talked about earlier, but this is Call of Duty. Call of Duty does very, very well. Generally, you only get dirt when things aren't going well and people get frustrated and fed up. That's when they start dishing stuff out to the media or say they start talking about things that are going wrong. Call of Duty sells 15 to 20 million copies every year. No one really has anything to complain about. So I think that's kind of the root of it. I'm sure there is crappy stuff that happens developing all of the Call of Duty games. People hate each other that work on the teams. People disagree on the direction of the games. You can go on and on. But ultimately, the product ends up being successful. But when you talk about what's going on with Activision and Bungie, they really have not lived up to what they were expecting. They have not sold as well as they have hoped. Bungie has not put out as many games as it was supposed to, according to the contract it signed with Activision. So on both sides of the aisle, neither party is happy, and that's when you start getting the dirt kicked up. I mean, to be fair, though, there was some controversy about Call of Duty. We talked about it earlier in the show with Vince Zampella in Infinity Ward. Vince and his partner, who went on to form Respawn, sued Activision and won. Won, what was it, $147 million, something like that. It was an insane judgment. So there has been some controversy as far as Activision not paying out what it should have to people who worked on the franchise.
But I think he's asking about like controversy, like the whole like stop the loot boxes thing,
right?
Because they're in, and the answer is because they sell and no one cares.
Yeah. Well, I think Call of Duty does a pretty good job with how it does that stuff, though.
Well, there was like
you get so much content on the disc.
They attempted some things with like buying guns and
they had loot boxes in prior games, straight up loot boxes.
Yeah, but also like loot boxes that weren't just cosmetic.
Yeah.
And I think they adjusted. They changed that.
They did.
But mainly it's because it's too big, and most of that stuff happened before you had. It's a weird mix of it's too big and it's not big enough because like. Call of Duty's big enough that it can just sort of like ignore the complaints, whereas like Fortnite was so big, but it was also kids.
Yeah,
it's so popular with kids that's when you finally got some of these other countries starting to look into their gambling laws and how they applied to those things.
Yeah.
So I would say like Call of Duty was actually kind of in a weird sweet spot where they were big enough to ignore the complaints, but weren't far-reaching to like.
They're also M-rated.
They weren't far-reaching to the youth market enough that parents got upset about it.
Yeah, an M-rated game lets you off the hook in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Whereas Fortnite's T, or is it
Fortnite's
E10?
T. Fortnite's T.
T.
Yeah, because you're shooting people.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with Call of Duty, even if the question had been raised, all Activision had to say was like, well, it's M-rated, so they shouldn't be playing it, so go away. So we'll see. I think that's part of it.
From Tomb Raiders, you guys didn't add any stakes for who loses or wins the fantasy draft this year. Do you plan to? That's a good question because I don't think I did my penance for last year.
Nope.
I don't think I ever did. And we haven't even talked about one for this year. So maybe we need to do just like a punish stream where I get punished first and then you get punished.
Maybe.
To just make up for the last 2 years all at once. We'll figure something out. The fun is in the competition, though. It's not about the... I know you guys want to see the punishment. But for me...
They just want to see me make you play Dark Souls.
Probably, yeah. And they probably want me to make you play Call of Duty or something. So I know you guys want to see us suffer. But to me, the fun is just in the playing and the competition. So
I think I would probably just make you play fighting games with me and
Just try to win one round.
Because you don't like to lose, so after a few hours of that, you just be really mad.
I would not last a few hours of that. I'll guarantee you that.
I'll bust out all the weird Dreamcast stuff and all the things. All right, in this one, we're blobs of ink.
You're gonna bust out Clay Fighter 64 and a third.
We're gonna play every single King of Fighters in order.
I'd be okay with that. I like King of Fighters actually.
There's
Alex,
a lot of King of Fighters games.
Assuming the Disney-EA relationship eventually ends, could you see Disney poaching top talent to make games in-house with their own new studios, or would they choose another existing publisher or developer to make them? Dream scenario for me would be open-world Star Wars by Guerrilla Games.
I can tell you with 98% certainty Disney will never make an in-house game development anything ever again.
Yeah.
They have no interest in it. They don't want to run it. They don't want to own it. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want to have anything to do with that. So
they've tried.
Yeah, they've
3
done it
separate
before.
times or
yeah,
2 separate times?
3.
Where they started, quit, started again.
Yeah. They just don't want to do it, and the early shutdown of Disney Infinity and all that was sort of it's a similar thing to Activision, where it's like, if you're not making $1 billion for us, we don't want you in the fold.
Yeah, Pactor's talked about this. Someone asked this question for Pactor Factor one week, and he basically said it's just not, they were making money, but not enough money, because he started talking about what Disney generates from all its other business units, and it's like a joke. It's like, why are we doing this?
Matter.
Yeah, it's like.
It's like how it's like, but the all the controversy over the border wall, which is like $5.7 billion or something like that, and a bunch of people who supported it started like an Indiegogo fund or something, and they made something like
20 million.
20 million. Yeah, 20 million of, I think they got, and it's like, that's if you do the actual percentage math, it's like if you wanted to buy a $20,000 car and I gave you $70 to help.
I know,
it's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's absolutely nothing. And that's like the whole thing with like Disney Infinity is like, we wouldn't even notice if this was gone from our bottom line, so we're going to make it go from our bottom line.
What we are getting from it is a big headache and a bunch of hassle.
Yeah, it's too.
Nothing.
We could put the people who have to manage this on other things.
And I'm okay with Ubisoft making Disney. Like, I'm okay with other publishers doing it.
I mean,
Disney, would you be happy if Disney just started random studios and just started,
and also,
like,
remember,
they'd be bad games?
Remember, this is not Disney's decision.
Yeah.
It's Lucasfilm's decision. Yeah. Because what Disney has decided is to hand Marvel and Kingdom Hearts over to Square. But Lucasfilm picked EA. So we'll see what Lucasfilm decides to do going forward.
I have a feeling they're going to be like, we're going to get the hell out of Dodge.
I don't know. I mean, we've mentioned that before, but it's just like pulling yourself out of that relationship that you've spent years building a pipeline for, and starting over with a brand new company is just, oh my God, it
sucks. But sometimes you got to do it.
I think with in the light of today's news, where they canceled another one, and now, so basically now we're looking at Fallen Jedi. What else is in the pipeline?
More cancellations than announcements.
That's true.
Think about that.
We've had more cancellations than releases.
Yeah, oh yeah, way more, way more.
So now we got Fallen Jedi and
Battlefront 3.
Battlefront 3.
You know Battlefront 3 is coming.
So
dropping the ball. Joaquin Dragoon, are you ever interested in anime games like Jump Force coming in February? Me, no.
No, not that one. I'm too old for most, because
I cannot resonate with anime anymore. I never really did.
Yeah.
Like when I was like, I don't know, like 19 years old, I was really into animation just in general, and like 3D animation, because it's like the first time, like I used to watch Liquid Television on MTV, and you get like the first look at anime in the U.S. really to a commercial audience.
Well, 10 years later.
To a commercial audience, though.
Voltron, Robotech, Astro Boy, Speed Racer. Anime had been part of the commercial landscape.
But they weren't. It wasn't called anime then, though. Well, it was just cartoons from Japan.
But Japanimation, or whatever you call it. But like that had been introduced already to the market. Liquid Television was a much more niche thing, and I actually can't remember any anime from it. Actual Japanese animation.
Ion Flux.
Aeon Flux is not Japanese.
Is that Western?
That was Western, and I think Korean.
Okay.
That was not Japanese anime. That was I loved it, but it was not.
It looked like it.
Well, the style is there, but it actually has a slightly difference. I always knew it was not that, because it also had a lot of heavy metal magazine influence. There's some shit going on there, but animes. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
But that show convinced me to start looking into anime, and then I started watching stuff like the more commercial stuff like Akira, Vampire Hunter D, stuff like that made the rounds.
Well, that's the kind of age. I mean, to me, I did like anime growing up, but I liked Macross and Gundam and like kind of the stuff of the time.
I mean, I watched Voltron when I was a kid. I just didn't know it was
Akira,
anime.
Yeah. There's that like fleet of like great anime films, that theatrically released films that made it to the U.S. In that kind of late '80s to early '90s. You had Akira, you had Ghost in the Shell. You had,
that's all the stuff.
Ninja Scroll, all the stuff you rented from Blockbuster.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But like the stuff that's in Jump Force is like, I was too old. I was an adult by the time One Piece and
like
Naruto
I don't care about One Piece. I don't care about
Naruto
or DBZ.
I do like Yu-Gi-Oh, but not enough to buy a $60 game for it.
The other thing I would say about anime too is it seems like the worst people I run into online all have anime avatars. Why is that?
It's an ongoing meme.
It is?
Yeah, it's a common statement.
Oh, why is that?
There's also research that came out this past week that anime fans in high schools, anime fans are the bottom social strata. Like the most looked down on.
Does that explain it? I'm not sure.
Which was crazy to me because when I was in high school, anime was so niche that wasn't a thing.
Honestly, anime when I was in school, the cool kids watched the anime.
It was like
because the dorks, the norms didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, well, because
it was something that people who were in the subculture like looked for and found and watched.
Yeah, it had more of a underground thing, and like it was like where your parents like lenient enough to let you rent the mature stuff from that part of the Blockbuster. Because Ninja Scroll was like, oh, you've seen Ninja Scroll because everybody gets cut up and everybody's naked all the time, like.
Yep.
But like
tentacle rape.
Urotsuka Doji. They had that at Blockbuster in part because I don't think they knew what it was. It's like, that's hardcore stuff. But like, the Jump Force stuff is not interesting to me. I mean, I think it's interesting that it looks like that. Like, it's an art style I would not have expected them to pick for that game. So I'm interested when I see it in that regard, but I'm not going to buy it.
I mean, it doesn't look like a good fighting game.
No, I mean, it looks like an arena fighter, like
it's a brawler,
like a Power Stone kind of thing. I mean, I know.
Oh, well, hey, if it was Power Stone, I'd be all
in. That's a
but...
dated thing, or like the Gundam Versus games.
Yeah, it's like all the Dragon Ball fighting games. Yeah,
except
arenas.
Fighters,
right?
Which
is the best one.
Yeah, which I will play because it's more like the thing I recognize. That's the other thing. Is like I just don't like those 3D fighting unless it's virtual own. I'm kind of the fighting arena things. I'm not really into that.
Me either. Justin Horman, what game have you bought the most times?
Super
Mario
probably
Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers. Yeah,
no question.
Yeah.
Nothing else even close.
If you want to like eliminate things that have just sort of ended up on my various systems, probably The Witcher 3. One of the Witcher games, because I have every version and every release and I have four different versions of the original and like every version of the second one, and then like the re-releases. Like it's probably a Witcher game in there somewhere, or Eco. I have a lot of copies of Eco as well.
Yep,
and just got another copy of Eco last week thanks to the stand user.
That's right. Joaquin, you've asked a bunch of great questions, but we're gonna just go one per user tonight. Casey Wright, why no MLB The Show for the Fantasy League? It always scores in the 80s.
I forgot.
Yeah, we just
frankly
we're not perfect. We're not computers. We can't remember every single game. That
is also interesting when you do like the games of 2019 thing. You look at the Wikipedia article or like kind of the Google search. The sports stuff does not come up. They're not there, even though like we know they're coming. There's nothing there. There's no expected.
Call of Duty's never there either.
That's true. Until it's announced.
Yeah, I think people just assume it's like Matt had a technique of drafting NBA 2K every year, and that worked for 3 years. But then last year, what happens is as a generation wears on, they stop adding new features, and the scores start to go down. Mm-hmm. And I think Matt got an 80 or an 81 from it last year, or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't like stellar.
Yeah, after a while, there's no upside with sports games. And I think maybe you're just hoping that you pick something else. There is a chance of maybe it doing a little better than you might suspect. With a sports game, you kind of know what you're getting, and you can really look at the scores from prior years and kind of know what you're going to get the next year. So, to me, even a game like Jump Force might be worth drafting over a game like MLB The Show because, yeah, okay, you may say right at the beginning, oh, well, obviously MLB The Show is going to score. You don't know that. We know what MLB The Show is going to score, but we don't know how high or low Jump Force is going to score. So I'd rather go with a game that may have a chance of having a little upside, but maybe scores 0.2 lower than that 8 that I know a sports game is going to get. Oh, by the way, we are doing a draft with Sifters. And if you want to get into the league, I think the draft's happening on Friday, like all day. But if you want to get into the league, talk to Mick Womble, who you can find anywhere on Sifted, or you can go into our Discord, and they're talking about it there. But draft is going to happen on Friday. So if you want to get in, make sure you get in touch with us. Or you can just @ me on the site. Just DM me @ Shane on Sifted, and I'll point you in the right direction so you can get in the league. Let's answer one or two more. If we got them anyway.
Headingham J, if RE2 is successful, would you like to see a remake of RE3?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The only one that I probably don't know if it could be improved with a remake is Code Veronica.
Code Veronica would be a hard one.
Because it's already in 3D.
Well, you could improve it by making it not control like complete shit.
Yeah.
Because, man, like...
Yeah, you go back and play that now, it is not holding up.
Look, I don't like the old survival horror game. I think the
tank controls.
The tank controls in conjunction with the static camera. Like when you do like Silent Hill when the camera moved, I found that better because but no, you're trying to create like a movie like atmosphere. No movie's just a bunch of lockdown shots like that. It always looked artificial and a technological limitation to me. But I had some friends who are hardcore horror fans and loved all the Resident Evil, loved all the horror stuff. And the remasters would come out on GameCube and on Xbox Live, and they'd buy them and play through them again. And I'd be like, I can't do this. I just hate it. I never liked it. I played it in spite of itself, and now it has even less appeal because I've already played it and it's 10 years out of date. But when Code Veronica came out on Xbox Live Arcade, those three guys, they all bought it, and within, because we would be on the headsets in like the group chat playing different things and talking, and within 30 minutes, all of them were like, I can't do this. I can't.
Oh, I love
this.
Code Veronica when it came out.
I thought it was my favorite one for a while when
I
it came out on
loved
the
it.
Dreamcast. But they all like, this is too far gone. Like,
Yeah.
it's unplayable now. It's terrible. And
Yeah, when it came out, I loved it.
So I think you could.
That is one of those games where I was wrong ultimately.
I think Code Veronica could be a really interesting study in how a remake could like make something that just has not aged well at all, like still work again.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that like the villain would be very problematic now.
Yep. That's one way to put it.
It's basically like trans panic the villain.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think it might be best to just
Let that sleeping dog lie.
in the
Absolutely.
past. Especially because it doesn't add anything of value to the mythos, really.
Yeah.
Like it's except that opening cinema. That opening cinema with Jill like doing all the badass stuff is pretty cool.
It is,
but
yeah.
I can just go back and watch that on YouTube when I need to.
One last question. This one comes from Vincent. Did you guys see the pre-alpha footage of Disney Infinity 4? I absolutely did. It's on Sifted right now. That's crazy.
They were real far on that thing. I mean, they
just pulled the plug right at the end. It appears, yeah.
And they kind of did the same thing with that the Marvel Heroes game.
Yeah,
that Gazillion was on.
It's like
I like that game a lot.
At a certain point, it's just called cutting your losses.
Pretty much.
Because they're like, wait, we haven't sent all these toys into manufacturing yet? Okay. Saved by the bell. We've only burned $20 million making the game so far. No big deal.
Yeah.
When you talk about warehouses full of toys that no one will buy, that's $20 million's nothing. So, yeah, I was shocked to see how far along it was, but at the same time, I can still understand why they killed it.
Yeah, and if they'd gone ahead with it, I think we'd still see some of those things sitting on shelves today.
Absolutely.
That whole thing was over.
Yep.
I mean, you still see Skylanders today sitting around at Target.
Oh, yeah. I have Skylanders in my closets that I need to just throw out the window and hope somebody picks it up on the street. I saw someone ask about how do you get to the Discord. There's a Discord link in the footer of the website, and there's also an image in the top carousel that just says Discord gigantically. Just click on it, and that'll take you right to our Discord channel. So that's it. GameFace episode 153 is a wrap. Like I said, we are doing our summit in 2 days. Stay tuned to Sifted's Twitter page, which is @SiftedGames, and we'll let you guys know the exact time we're going to do it. It'll probably last an hour or two. I will have stuff organized. It's not going to be this crazy mosh pit of people throwing ideas out there. It will be very organized. You guys will have appropriate times to kind of give your feedback. Otherwise, it just turns into chaos and we get nothing done. So it'll be very structured. I'll have kind of a list of stuff that we're going to go through, bullet points, and I'll ask for your input whenever we need it, and we'll go from there. So as always, Sifted is all about us, not me and not we. And we want to make sure it's a site that you guys want to go to and a site that we can succeed with going forward. So start putting your thinking caps on, start jotting down some notes over the next couple of days if you're so inclined. And we'll see you guys on the summit on Thursday. Again, if you're watching the show on YouTube, it would be awesome if you could give us some money on our Patreon. If not, just go down below and there are directions to hook us up with Twitch Prime. You can give us a free $2.50 every single month. So with that, everyone have a great week. GameFace is up and out.